everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and tonight we're going to tell you how we felt about the first season of Batman Caped Crusader on Amazon. Got a real big panel for you tonight. Almost hitting our record for number of panelists, and I'll try to make sure not to be as long-winded as I usually am so that everybody gets to say some things. Again, I'm Captain Logan. Next to me is my son, Jayson, who's going to be reviewing with us, but also modding tonight, so direct your questions at Jayson, please, in the chat, super chats or just regular comments. Appreciate you guys. And then we've also got Austin, the Day Ghost.
What's up?
We've got our good friend, John Sandoval.
Hello, everyone.
We've got Connor Nielsen.
Howdy, howdy.
And back from purgatory, it's Dan Torrey.
Hey, everybody.
Dan, you're on a Batman thing.
I know. It's like one of the superhero things I've liked in recent years, so it's going to be fun.
Dan's like, I got to be on for this one because I never like superhero stuff anymore, so even though it's Batman, I'm going to show up.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson is one of my favorite superhero movies in recent memory. The Penguin show looks awesome, and this show I really enjoyed too. So it's weird times.
We're gonna turn Dan into a Batman fan by default.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's the only thing that like people are making like with care in the superhero genre, I guess I'll have to.
You have to pick Dan between all these Batman things and your Thor and Hulk on the Marvel side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've had a couple of things, but it's been slim pickings. Like, I mean, at least you still got the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, those are good. I'm really hopeful that the third one kind of sticks the landing.
Me too, yeah. And I don't think we had you on when we reviewed the last one, but I will try to invite you for the rewind commentaries on those, even though you and I have done a commentary on the first one, but with the rewind commentaries, I'm going back through everything again and doing updated commentaries. And Austin physically can't watch those because they make him sick, so I'm going to need a different co-host for those anyway.
Right, yeah,
so you should pop in for that. But anyway, welcome everybody. Batman Caped Crusader, a show that I want to say was announced like 3 years ago. I haven't been waiting forever for this.
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while.
It was announced around the same time as My Adventures with Superman, which also felt like a thing we waited for a long time. But hilariously, 2 seasons of that dropped almost in their entirety before this show. No, I know, in their entirety before this show started, and both of them were announced to be on HBO Max. And this got Zaslaved and then shopped around and wound up at Amazon, and thank God it actually happened. We got to see it. I don't think there was any real concern that this show wasn't going to get picked up by somebody, but wouldn't that have been a real world to live in? Bruce Timm makes a Batman show. He's working real diligently on it. It's probably halfway done or better, and it gets canceled and nobody ever gets to see it.
I think this is also famously or infamously the only thing that came out of the J.J. Abrams $1 billion deal or wherever it was that he signed with Warner Brothers, and they didn't even end up airing it, which is hilarious.
And you can't even see his imprint on it at all. I keep seeing people saying why is J.J. Abrams' name even on this? He clearly had nothing to do with this.
Well, I saw an interview with Bruce Timm where he talked about it, where he said JJ's involvement was he went to JJ and said, I have an idea for the show. We're going to do old Universal horror and old cinematic crime films. And JJ was like, that's a good idea. Go make it.
I'll take my cut. This also would not be the first project that happened with J.J. Abrams. Sorry, Connor, go ahead.
Well, I think Matt Reeves co-founded Bad Robot with J.J. Abrams. So I think that deal he did was a Bad Robot deal with WB. So yeah.
I didn't know Matt
even
Reeves
though
was...
J.J. Abrams...
I didn't know Reeves was part of Bad Robot. Crazy.
No, yeah, Reeves and Abrams entered the industry together. They were partnered up way back in the day.
Wow. Thanks, Connor. That's why we
invited you to Cloverfield together. I was one.
I would have never known that.
And one of these filmmakers is not like the other.
One of these filmmakers just doesn't belong. Anyway, I'm really excited to get you guys' thoughts on this. 10 episodes, they all dropped at once. I had different plans for this because I just didn't look into it and thought it was coming out weekly. And then Austin was like, yeah, I'm going to binge it all. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to binge it? Oh, it's all coming out at once? Crap, I don't have time to watch it right away. So, but I wouldn't have wanted to do a spoiler cast over last weekend anyway. I want to give people time to watch it, even though I'm sure most of our audience went ahead and just knocked it all out over that first weekend. But full spoilers tonight. I mean, I guess we'll do our standard kind of go around and get best thing, worst thing before we really get hard into spoilers. But I wouldn't worry too much, guys, tonight about even spoiling things early, because I doubt that very many people are going to look at this, season overview thing and not having seen the show at all. So I'll just put out the spoiler warning early and say be careful where you tread. You'll probably get some spoilers, but I think we'll be probably fine with that. Anyway, where do I want to start tonight? Well, I guess we usually do a synopsis, and this is 10 episodes. It's a whole show, so I'm gonna have somebody just give us like a basic premise and sense of what this show looks like. Jayson, do you want to do it?
Sure.
Okay, tell us what Caped Crusader, just to remind everybody.
What it looks like?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the year 1939, kind of. But also, like, do they have a specific year?
No.
It's like the late 30s or early 40s.
It's ambiguous, but much less so than Batman the Animated Series, because we don't have, any later technologies. So it's all basically the tech you would have had at that period. But this could take place really any time within the late 30s into the 40s, I would think.
Well, it's supposed to be old.
It's old.
So
yes.
it's very much mirroring those, like you said, the spy thrillers and horror movies, thrillers from that time period, and just that kind of thing. But yeah, Batman is it's a Batman show. Set in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Where he fights guys and there are cops.
Hey Dan, what's the show like?
What's that?
What's the show like, Dan?
So I would say, as someone that's not a gigantic like Batman fan, I like Batman well enough, but I'm not as well versed as some of you here maybe in like the early Golden Age stuff. But my kind of sense was they really went back to the roots of the character with this one. It really reminded me of those kind of like what little I've read of the early Golden Age Batman stories. Batman is kind of a like shadowy, scary presence in ways that I don't think I've seen adapted in things. There's some really cool stuff I will get into that I really liked in the show, where Batman kind of feels like a almost Dracula vampiric figure and is referenced as such in the show, which is really cool. And we're really going into the like hard-boiled crime, mob politics stuff in Gotham, which is cool. I really appreciated that aspect of the show as well. So if you like that kind of, I mean, Greg Rucka and Ed Brubaker are two of the biggest influences on the show. They write and produce. Ed Brubaker is a producer on the show. Rucka wrote some episodes, so they're kind of
Brubaker wrote one too.
Brubaker being a big crime fiction guy, and Rucka, I believe he writes in that genre as well. But he also wrote Gotham Central and various other superhero things too. So their DNA is kind of all over this. So if you like that kind of stuff, that's really what they went for here, which is cool.
Yeah, Brubaker also has script credit for Night of the Hunters. And he plotted Kiss of the Catwoman but didn't write it.
When he's the head writer, I think, so he probably has like a hand in everything.
I was gonna say he does as much or more than Rucka on the writing side. But I saw Rucka's blueprints all over this, and felt like a lot of the choices in police characters were probably because Rucka is there.
Oh, Montoya is the very obvious one, of course. Like that's his character, and she's great in the show. I really liked her here.
But even like Corrigan, I wonder if he would have been there if it wasn't for Rucka.
Yeah, it's a good question.
But yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, Hardboiled is right. It's playing real hard into the gangster side of Batman. Like even the most supernatural, more kind of heightened episodes still have a lot of that baked into them, partly because it's a lightly serialized show. And I say lightly because until you get to the big two-parter at the end, every episode stands alone. But there is a real loose kind of overarching story happening in the background. And I want to say even like less story and more just changing status quo. So there's a really good sense of continuity through this show, but it's less serialized even than something like X-Men '97, because that show, each episode, it's like you think you're watching separate pieces of a thing that all comes together by the end. And this does that to a lesser degree, but it's more just kind of lightly shifting status quo throughout.
Yeah, Batman does have a character arc throughout the season.
That's true.
And particularly with his relationship with Alfred, that develops in specific episodes in the series as it goes along, because he starts out like really cold and kind of distant from even Alfred, and then he kind of warms up and their relationship becomes closer by the end of the season, and that happens in specific episodes, which I really liked. But you're right, for the most part you can kind of watch any of these out of order and get something out of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that Batman has a character arc throughout, and he absolutely does, which I'm sure is one of the things you really liked about it, because a lot of people that don't like Batman don't like the thing that I typically really enjoy about Batman stories, which is that he's a character that refuses to change. This is a Batman that, like with the Batman movie, he has arguably a similar arc, and he's more in the background than in even animated series and your typical Batman stories, especially modern stories. So it's interesting that he has a real trackable arc throughout, but he's very in the background in a lot of episodes.
Yes, and I did really like that about the show. It was one of my favorite things about it, for sure.
We'll start going round robin in a second. Dan, one of my favorite things about this show is it feels to me like, particularly in psychology and attitude, it's Tim Burton's Batman fully realized and in a thing that makes sense.
Interesting. Elaborate.
Because Tim Burton's Batman is real walled off from everybody, including the audience. And he's a Batman that keeps completely to himself and is super monosyllabic, doesn't like to talk to anybody, is really socially awkward and antisocial. And he was clearly and I've talked about this a lot, but he was clearly a stand-in for Tim Burton himself in Tim Burton's movies. And I feel like if Burton would watch the show, he would absolutely love it. It felt even more like an adaptation of his Batman, even though we're in kind of a full-on period, as opposed to the more timeless thing that animated series was doing and that '89 was doing. It feels even more like an adaptation of that, or a cartoon show based on that, than an animated series does, which got made because of '89.
I also felt like it was kind of looking at the Matt Reeves movie in the same way that the animated series was looking at the '89 movie, in the sense that, like you said, Batman is starting in a similar kind of singularly obsessed with vengeance place, and changing from that as the series goes on. And obviously, like, the designs of Jim Gordon and Barbara invoke like the casting in the movie and stuff like that. So
yeah, you can definitely see his imprint on it in a way you can't Abrams. I'm sorry, what was that, Austin?
I said Andy's a Batman that can lose as well. But I had the same thing with what you were saying with Burton with the Batman movie, where it was like taking that kind of standoffish Bruce Wayne and building a more character-focused movie around it.
Yeah, and it's taking its cues from lots of Batman stuff, certainly. It's weird the Nolan places it goes to by the end, and we'll talk about that. But I wasn't thinking about Nolan at all. And then you get to everything it's doing with Two-Face at the end, and I'm like, oh, and now we're in a Dark Knight place. So, all right. Let's go ahead and go round robin and see how everybody felt about this show. Give me your best thing, worst thing, your overall thoughts, walking out or finishing the show, and a sign flip. And let's start with John, because we haven't heard from John at all.
Okay. So my best thing is just because I went into the show with like kind of trying to keep expectations in check. A lot of the villain stuff that they'd announced didn't really excite me. And I don't like some of the designs just because I haven't read a lot of the Golden Age stuff, so like it's kind of new territory for me. I think my best thing is probably their Catwoman. I think she's really great. Worst thing is I'm not a fan of their Harvey Dent Two-Face arc. So probably my worst thing. It just didn't all come together at the end for me.
Yeah, you're not alone in that. We'll see how much of our panel feels that way, but that's the biggest complaint I'm hearing across the board. Are you going green, John?
Yes, I'm definitely flipping green. It's just nice to have Batman on screen. Whatever issues I may have with it, like it's Batman at the end of the day, and it's been so long since we've had an animated show that was good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I've been complaining for years that we do a lot of Batman stuff without Batman, or with Batman just like really in the background. Like people are complaining about that with this show, but I feel like there's a there's a real reason for that with this show, and it isn't just we have other characters we'd rather be focusing on, and we want to forget about that character. Austin, where do you land, man?
Oh, okay. My best thing is probably Hamish Linklater as Batman. When he was first announced, I was like, I love that guy in Midnight Mass, but like that's a really bizarre choice. But like, I like him, so I'm excited to see what he does with it. And then I think they kind of got off on the wrong foot by introducing us to his voice by having him read out a cast list.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that.
Which was just kind of awkward. We have like Christina Ricci. It's like, this is Batman. But I think he's really great. I think he does a really good job. And I have that with a lot of the cast. The cast overall is pretty great in this show. My worst thing, I'm going to flip a coin and take half of John's, because I think what they do with Harvey Dent's really good. But I don't really like how Dark Knight-y we go with Two-Face by the end.
Oh, interesting. Because when you and I had talked off camera, I thought you just disliked Harvey Dent in general. So you just don't like the Two-Face side of it.
Yeah, once it becomes Two-Face and it just kind of becomes Dark Knight, I was more out of it. But I like what we do with Harvey leading up to that. And I feel like I need another rewatch, because at the same time, I feel like there is a chance that I go back and watch this, and like now I know what they're doing with it. I can maybe come at it from that perspective of, okay, like it's not the Two-Face I want, but like I can just accept it as its own thing. So there is a chance like I go back to it, and I like it more. But
so
first viewing,
were you disappointed with the finale just because it was two parts and was all of that, and that's just what we're left on, or?
Weirdly enough, I actually like the finale more than the second last episode. The one that's more focused on him going around killing people, I wasn't as into, but then the finale, I liked quite a bit.
Okay, cool. What's your sign flip?
Oh, green. I like the show quite a bit.
Jayson, why don't you go?
Okay. So I'm gonna go. Actually, at the end of the day, I did really enjoy this show. I'm gonna give it a green, and yeah, I really liked the overall feel of it. I really, I haven't read too much of this era of Batman, but what I have read of it, I've really liked. So I was actually going into this with some pretty good expectations, and it came out kind of what I wanted from it. I liked that it was episodic. I liked that it was, very much in the style of TAS, but also being kind of its own thing. I think I'm gonna say my best thing is that it's heavily centered on the cops, which I think TAS does to some extent, but this does it more, and I really like everything they do with the cops, and I like how like big of a cast with the police that we have, and I think everything that we do with Gordon and those like the two cops that kind of go their own way by the end, is pretty fun, and yeah. And then my worst thing, I'm gonna say, the villains are a little too lame, and they're lame, and they're thrown in the background, and we don't do much with them, and so they're just kind of lame, and it just kind of feels like we don't do much with them, and I don't get anything out of them, so they come off just as lame.
There's a part of me that wants to just blow up Connor's panel and watch that for a while. Oh, he's back. Okay. And now he's frozen. Oh, there he is. He's good.
But yeah, I liked it.
Hey, Connor, did you have to defuse a bomb?
No, the whole time, and I didn't notice it. So
I'm sorry. What happened the whole time you cut out on us?
Luckily, my mic was muted. Oh, like my phone was playing the stream on my phone, and I had to go turn it off so I could. But my mic was muted. So
I was just imagining this ticking time bomb. Like, oh my god, I've got 10 seconds, and the whole thing is gonna explode.
Sorry to interrupt.
Like Harley Quinn's playpen. Yeah. Okay, Jayson, are you good?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear from Connor.
All right. Well, the Connor hates everything. People are going to get more wood for their fire. I don't know where I'm going on this one because I'm really, really mixed on it. I like a lot about it, mostly conceptually, and I like a lot of the writing on an episode by episode basis. I guess a word of it, just kind of like a background for me. I love like the first year of Batman stories. When I was a little kid and I was reading comics for the first time, I was like, well, all of it, it's one big long story, so you have to start at the beginning. And then I would like read 2 or 3 years worth of Batman stories, and then I'd fall off. Then I'd go, well, I have to start over. And so then I would like start again and read another couple of years of Batman. Then I'd fall off and then start again. So I've read the first year of Batman stories probably 6, 7 times. So I really love like that era of comics. And so when I saw that they were doing something like this in animation, I was really excited. So I think when I got it, I was not sure what to expect. I kind of stayed away from, I stayed away from promotional stuff mostly. But yeah, it more like the series, it was a lot more like an old animated series show than I was expecting. I am freezing up, right? So
no, you're good.
What are you guys hearing?
Oh, you spoke too soon, Cap.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, you jinxed it.
Go ahead, Connor. I think you're back with us.
But anyways, I'll just say best thing here, I think, is I like a lot of the reinventions. I think in a recent stream, Cap, you were talking about how, like, you know, Bruce Timm's done like a lot of Batman before, and you were kind of suspecting that a lot of these reinventions just felt like he's bored, he wants to do something new and exciting for himself. Well, if that's what motivated it, then I think he made at least, and the other writers did a good job at making it interesting to me. I actually really liked what they do with Harley Quinn. I like how this whole show does like a kind of similar out of time thing that the animated series did, but in a different way, where like it is a lot more socially conscious and contemporary in that way, and they're putting it in like a 1930s, 1940s context, and that does kind of give it that out of time animated series quality to it. And then I would say the worst thing here, I'm gonna actually say the animation. It's like really cheapo flash animation to me a lot of the time. And I think a lot of the kind of mood and atmosphere stuff that a lot of this would rely on to, you know, invoke like universal monsters and classic hard-boiled detective stuff, a lot of it's undone by this sterile, overly clean animation style. So I'm going to try to stop talking as soon as possible because I am spotty. But I'll say I also found that while I did like a lot of the ideas for episodes, and I thought that when you got into those episodes, they were structured pretty cool. I do think that episode by episode, they kind of struggle to kind of stick the landing or thread the needle in resolving things. And I think the series finale, like the last 2 episodes, I think
Sorry,
they
guys.
kind of killed my enjoyment. They kind of killed my enjoyment because I feel like they just kind of reset everything and nothing was accomplished across the entire season. So, anyways, those are my general thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Connor feels a lot differently than some of us do. We'll talk about some of those threads and things here in a little bit. Connor, which way do you flip your sign? Because you said you weren't sure where you land. But if I put a grappling gun to your head, what would you say?
I would watch a second season, so I guess I'll say green.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go ahead and do my sign flip here in a second. But do some of you guys feel like it's what we have here is a pretty good proof of concept and a lot of good setup, but maybe it could have accomplished a little bit more in the season. Where like there's a lot of potential here, because I'm hearing a lot of people like they enjoyed what we had here, but were frustrated that it wasn't more than 10 episodes. Like kind of feels like we're just getting going. Because I think as a season, it holds together fine, but it also could have really easily been the midpoint for a season, for like a 2022 episode thing.
Yeah, I found the whole season to be satisfying, but I did find myself wishing there was more just because I enjoyed it. So I would agree with that, definitely.
And I feel like for me, it could possibly be awkward if every season is just 10 episodes. Like I think I was talking to John about this off camera, but it's going to be weird. Like if we're bringing villains back to give them more episodes, but then also we have to introduce new villains. Like it could be kind of wonky where it's like, how do you find that balance when you only get 10 episodes every like 2-3 years?
Sure. Yeah. My prediction would be the show probably gets slightly more serialized to deal with that if they don't add more episodes. So you'd see more kind of like subplots winding in and out of each other, and like more than one villain in episode, or villains that stick around for a while and then get dropped out at some point, as opposed to what we have in this season, which is like building the origin for a villain throughout the season, and then most of the other villains we get just one appearance for them, and they're in and out, whether we just write them out or kill them off or whatever we do with them. But I could see that. I could see like multiple subplots happening simultaneously.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know you like the episodic nature of this, Austin, and that's not what you want, but that's my prediction, is that they'll get more serialized with their second season.
I mean, it's possible, yeah. I hope they keep it to how this season does it, but we'll see.
Was anybody else also surprised by the villains that don't come back? Because I really thought, particularly with Penguin and Catwoman, that we were establishing villains that we would see again later in the season.
I was really surprised that they killed Dent off at the end of the season. I expected Two-Face to be a recurring villain for the rest of the series, but yeah, that was the big one that surprised me, that like moving forward, we're not going to have Two-Face again in the show.
Well, yeah, because you spend a whole season developing the origin for a villain that you then kill off at the end.
Yeah,
it's kind of surprising.
I personally didn't mind that. I thought it worked for the story.
I didn't either. That's not what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I was very surprised by it.
It's almost like over the season arc, we do the same thing that you would usually do in a 22-minute episode with a villain you don't think you're going to bring back.
Yeah.
We just treat it, as the season. Because I was surprised that Harley Quinn was left the way she was. Although that is very Bruce Timm, and he is playing that kind of like a Joker right out. Because we did that over and over again in the animated series, where Joker falls from a high place and he can't possibly have survived, but then he just shows up again later. Like, we've done that with Harley Quinn now. It's kind of great.
Well, it's straight up from Batman Beyond. Like, it's almost the exact same thing, where it's even Barbara holding her.
Oh, that's true!
She falls the Great Fall, yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's hilarious.
Well, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't she call Montoya on the phone at the end saying she had to go out of town for a while or something?
Yeah.
So she's still alive. That's how they left it. I mean, I assume she'll come back at some point.
Yeah, I guess I missed that.
End up connecting her and Joker later, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen.
Great.
I'll go ahead and do my sign flip, and then we can get into the Harley Quinn thing, because I know Jayson has different thoughts than some of us that have already talked about that.
It seems like, yeah, we'll see.
I think what I want to do is I'll do my sign flip, and then Chewbacca's Lover has a super chat.
And we just got another super chat as well.
Okay,
so.
Thanks, guys. We'll go ahead and answer those here in a second. Again, direct all your questions tonight to Jayson. He's going to be modding. So I'll just right away say I'm feeling it. I think I was more taken in and riveted toward the beginning of the season than I was as I went through. Not to say that I fell off of it and I got bored with it and I didn't want to watch it anymore, but like I was just maybe I just got used to the tone of it too quickly. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like I got really sucked in to just stuff that resonated with me personally, with like score and that walled off Batman characterization, where it took me back to 6 years old in a way no Batman thing has since the animated series. And I kept thinking, like I said, this is that 89 adaptation kind of that I thought animated series was. And especially in score, it's cool how like 30s and 40s noir the score is, but then it also goes to these Elfman places, and kind of Shirley Walker places. And I still want to know if it was recorded with an actual orchestra or not, because I cannot tell. Like if that's done on a computer, it sounds really good. And you know that technology is there now, but I cannot tell listening to it, which is wonderful. I couldn't even tell you what my favorite episode is so far. I'm gonna go around later and see what everybody's favorite and least favorite episodes are. But quality wise, I felt like overall it was pretty darn consistent. Like I have almost more favorite like moments and ideas and things than I even do favorite episodes. I didn't think there was a big weak link through the whole thing. Like animated series would always have those where there's those episodes that you kind of just want to skip, and I didn't have this with this, and it's not because it's kind of serialized, because it's still episodic enough that you could have those clunkers. I didn't really feel that way about it, but like I said, I wasn't as stoked and taken in by it toward the end. And like as far as the whole Dent thing goes, I'm just completely indifferent to the whole thing. I don't know how I feel about their characterization with Two-Face. That's the one thing I feel like is kind of a little forced in how different it is, where it's like we've done 101 million different Two-Faces. We've got to come up with some kind of new angle, and they did, and I really like it on paper, but in the execution, I'm just totally lukewarm on it. And even Dent himself throughout. I'm trying to decide how I feel about. We can analyze this later. I'm trying to decide how I feel about Bruce Wayne being best friends with this guy, and like what exactly that's supposed to be saying about him. And we should talk about that later, because there is some discussion in the last couple episodes about the ways in which Harvey Dent reminds Batman of himself and things he doesn't like about himself. But I still wonder if he wouldn't like look at that guy in the kind of like corrupt places he feels like he has to go in order to get the job done, and go, I don't know if I really want to be around this guy with the corruption I'm trying to stamp out on the street. I couldn't decide if it was too much of a disconnect with that. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, I guess. My best thing is hands down the Batman-Alfred relationship. It's the most touching and the most chilling thing in the show for me simultaneously. It's just fantastic. Like I found it really moving when we get to the end and they've really reconciled, and Batman shows himself to be like more than humanized, and that like he really cares about what happens to Alfred, and he's not just the hired help. But I say it's just as chilling also because the scene that took me aback the most in the whole show was the flashback in the third episode where young Bruce Wayne comes into Alfred's room and says, I'm gonna get my revenge on all of the bad guys and you're going to help me. And
that's the best scene in the show.
And I don't know if anybody else had this reaction to it, but the thing I got really stuck on that I couldn't stop thinking about was he's already in the flashbacks a little bit heavyset, but he's a lot bigger later, and it's like because of what Batman has done to him psychologically, he's kind of let himself go. And like that, just the visual of that really bothered me. I was like, oh, Alfred's gained like 80 pounds because Batman forces him to help him be Batman. That really got me. Just all by itself. I was like, Batman made Alfred fat. Like, oh my God. Like, I love that.
I didn't even notice or think about that. That's really funny.
Yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
That's a really cool angle, but I also do like how generally people are thicker in this show, like people from that time. Like, I think that's actually a really cool design element to the show.
Yeah, I do too. I like that they don't shy away from that. Like even Bullock is bigger than I think I've ever seen him. And then Montoya is just real stocky, which is cool. Yeah. Although there's a part of me that keeps thinking that she's just got like iron rods sticking out of the side of that coat, like inside that coat, that just makes it wider.
She does have that like old school like shoulder pads in dress clothes thing going on,
yeah.
Which is cool.
No, it's really cool. I also really like the Gordon and Barbara relationship. I like the conflict they have throughout the season, and that there's two different ideologies going on in how they approach police work. I also think it's nice that they've got an older Barbara Gordon in this, in case Bruce Timm ever decides to do his Barbara and Bruce Wayne get together thing, because he could actually get away with it this time, and nobody would think it was icky. So like I guess that's nice. But yeah, I really like them a lot. I like that all of the cops have a clear worldview and an ideology position on things. And I'm with Jayson. I like how police-centric the whole thing is. My worst thing is really just inconsistency in some of the writing. And like this is a easy trap to fall into, and maybe it's a necessary evil with a show like this, where we've got a lot of different writers doing a pretty episodic show, and because of that, I just feel like maybe there should have been more of a clear series Bible on lingo and like how these characters talk. Because by the end of the show, I decided, okay, I guess it's more timeless and it's more just aesthetically the 40s than it's actually supposed to really be set in that period. But I didn't get the memo on that early enough in the show. So the only like contemporary thing I was really appreciating from the beginning of it is just ethnic diversity and the fact that you have women in prominent roles. So I'm like, okay, they're intentionally kind of cheating on that a little bit, although I was also expecting the show to at some point comment on it more, especially because there are places where and it's just hinted at. We don't do a whole episode about it. We don't really get into it very hard, but there are places where a female character will kind of have the I know I'm in a man's world attitude, but there are a lot of women in prominent places, and you have that at the same time as you have just like a lot of minorities in places of power, and nobody's talking about that. So it's a colorblind series, but I wasn't sure how colorblind it was supposed to be until we get to the 5th episode and we have a nearly like openly lesbian relationship, and I'm like, oh, okay, so like this isn't revisionist history. They've decided, and I'm sure there are people that have decided it's that and are upset about it, but I was like, okay, it's not revisionist history, it's just an aesthetic choice. It's just a what's the word I'm looking for? A style thing. But it took me too long to realize that, because the first couple of episodes I thought the language and the lingo was more or less right for that period. And then you get into episode 5 with Harleen Quinzel, and she's saying things like "geez," and I'm like, oh, okay, so it is more contemporary than I thought it was going to go. And so I guess I'm complaining that either it's too inconsistent, or it's not made clear enough toward the beginning what kind of a thing it is. Because I really thought, and I said this when Jayson and I were commenting on the first couple episodes, watching them for the first time on stream, how impressed I was with the authenticity of the period. And then eventually it's not all that authentic, because I guess they've decided that's not what it is, which is fine, but I wish I got that from the beginning. So that's my worst thing.
I feel like it's just that one writer, though.
Maybe. And because, so then, well, and We Can Play X-Men 97 had that same problem.
Yeah,
so
because she was in, because she wrote the Harley Quinn episode, and she wrote Nocturne. And Nocturne has some stuff like
both
that,
of those kind of had that.
Where, like, there's a kid that says nah, and
yeah.
I'm like, okay. So, yeah.
And again, I'm totally open to the idea of a basically contemporary show in its I don't know, its presentation of social ideas, but that gets rid of all the modern technology and is more heightened and a little bit more like the 40s, just because it's so much easier to tell detective stories that way. But so, like, I would complain that it was revisionist history if they straight up said the year is 1939, and then they did all that. They don't do that, so it's fine. But I needed a memo about that in the first episode.
They're so inconsistent about it.
That's what I think, yeah. But that's my main complaint about it. Overall, I really liked it. And like I said, there's not a bad episode. I don't think. Jayson disagrees with me, but I don't think there is.
You don't think there is what?
A bad episode.
Oh, I do think that's a bad episode.
See, that's what I was going to say. We'll get into that in a second. Why don't I go ahead and read these super chats, and then I want to go around and get everybody's favorite and least favorite episodes.
Do you want me to read them?
Oh, you haven't done Dan yet either.
What? Did I? Oh, that's because I had Dan explain the show. And I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead and give us your best thing, worst thing. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Dan's like, I'm never coming back.
So I think my best thing was probably, and this is generally like my favorite thing about most good Batman things, and this is why the show was so enjoyable to me, is the world of Gotham City. I find the corrupt, hard-boiled, dirty city to be a great setting for superhero stories in general. That's why Daredevil is one of my favorite Marvel characters, because it really goes into the darkest parts of humanity and corruption and all that kind of stuff in city life. And I really liked that aspect of it. One of the scene that probably exemplified that the most for me was the scene where Harvey Dent gets pulled into Boss Thorne's limousine when he's falling in the polls. And he says, Dent, if you want to win the election, I'll help you. And Dent is trying to stick to his principles. And Boss Thorne basically gives him a kind of lecture about the way the city actually works. And he's like, I bet on both guys. It doesn't really matter to me who wins, because I back both of them. And no matter who's in office, I win. And if you want to be the guy sitting in the chair, appealing to Harvey's kind of ego that he has in this characterization, then you'll take my money. And I was watching this with JoJo, my wife. She was in the room at the time when I was watching. She looked at me and she's like, wow, this is real life, huh? I can't believe this cartoon show is portraying mob corruption in a city in a realistic way. So I really liked that aspect of the show. Gotham City and all of its dirtiness was great. I think as far as the worst thing, maybe the Two-Face design. I know that may be a nitpicky thing, but Two-Face is one of my favorite Batman villains. It's him and the Riddler for me. They're my two favorites. And I don't know, I found the design to be kind of not colorful enough. Just having the face be just a, melted normal skin color was weird. I know like they were kind of going for a Dark Knight thing, but even the Dark Knight like makes his face look ashy on one side to get the like color contrast. You know, I don't need like a Tommy Lee Jones like pink half of his face, but I was hoping for something a little bit, you know, more radical than what we got, I guess. I don't know.
Again, that was one of the things that felt like change for the sake of change, where it's like, well, in the animated series, it's green, so it's got to be no color at all. And maybe the idea was it looks more like a Hammer horror Universal monster thing or something, you know, sort of throwback. But it's weird because the earliest Two-Face doesn't look like that, and they're doing a lot of designs.
Yeah, I don't.
You know, based on the earliest versions, and maybe they were trying to make him look like a character that Clayface could have played, like Matt Hagen. Like maybe that's what they were doing.
They needed the like green and orange checkered suit.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
I didn't really have a problem with it because this is a darker toned show, and all of the characters have more like darker tones. In their colors.
Everybody's less flashy and a little more muted. That's even Harley Quinn,
who's in her 1940s costume with like purple and has a giant cat car. You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, except for that.
Yes. But purple is like one of the like dark tones in this show. I feel like where it's like the blacks and the whites and the grays and the purples.
Is there a lot of purple in this show?
I feel like there is.
You think I would have noticed that?
You know, I mean, you've got the henchmen, like the Penguin's henchmen.
Sure.
With the purple gloves, and you got Catwoman's purple outfit.
Oh my god, the purple glove thing. Can I complain about that for a second?
Purple gloves on Batman, though.
Yeah. So
I was disappointed by black and purple.
Why in the world would you draw attention to it in your first episode, where Batman, who's got his almost exact perfect 1939 suit, and he's got the gloves without the gauntlets, there's no points on the arms, they're just black gloves, but they're purple originally, and I've always loved that design. And then he fights a guy in the last part of that episode wearing purple gloves, and I went, he's gonna punch this guy out and steal his gloves. And I was angry when that didn't happen.
What's the exact same gloves, too? They're just black.
Yeah, they're the same, but black. I'm like, well, at least don't draw attention to it. You gave somebody else purple gloves? What are you doing? No, Jayson will tell you, we were sitting there, I think I said it on stream. We were watching this on stream, and I was like, steal his gloves, Batman!
Yeah, and I would flip my sign green, too, because I really enjoyed the show. This is the first superhero thing in a while that I felt like has been made with the kind of care that made me like this stuff in the first place. I really enjoyed it.
Sure. Well, for me personally, we're getting into, I mean, I can't say new renaissance yet, but there's, 4 or 5 things recently that I've been really happy with, and I haven't had that in the longest time, so it's really nice to be in that place again. Dan, give My Adventures with Superman a shot, because it is shockingly watchable.
Yeah, I've seen episodes of that show, and I enjoyed them. I'll have to continue watching it.
Sure.
I've seen a little bit of the first season.
It took a little bit to win me over, and I don't initially love the aesthetic of it. They've won me over on that now too, but second season is killer. Like once they start getting into their Krypton stuff, it's really cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, quick endorsement for that. John and I are gonna talk about that show in a few weeks for you.
Cool.
Everybody. But yeah, Jayson, would you want to read the super chats down for us?
I can.
Because John is my Superman guy for some reason.
Superman.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, the only thing Superman-wise he likes is Smallville, and somehow he ended up the Superman expert.
It's not the only thing he likes, it's just the only thing he knew for the longest time.
Okay. We have a $5 super chat from Chewbacca's Lover.
Thanks, man.
I didn't hate it. It's just fine, but it's not the next great Batman show, and it wasn't worth the wait. Season 2 will not be worth the 3-year wait.
Well, hopefully it doesn't take 3 years. I don't think we can assume that they're going to take that long on the next season.
It'll be Invincible all over again.
Did it get renewed for a second season?
Yes.
I was going to say, has it
Brubaker
officially?
come back? So there's going to be a change in head writer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Brubaker, I guess, is working on the criminal adaptation because one of his indie comics from Image is getting adapted into a series. So he's going to work on that instead of working on season 2 of the Batman show.
Oh,
okay. Well,
is that an animated show or like a live action show?
I believe it's live action, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's,
do you know if that's on network or streaming or? Sorry, I haven't heard that.
It's a streaming show, but I'm not 100% sure. I just heard that that's what he's leaving to do. I don't know all the details, unfortunately, but
I think it's streaming because I think the lead actor is Sebastian Stan, so I'm going to assume it's not network, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and
it's interesting that they got the Winter Soldier actor to be the lead in his criminal show. That's actually really cool.
Well, it's really funny because like the article that I found it out through, it was like Ed Brubaker and Sebastian Stan confirmed they're working on something, and I was like, oh, they're making like a Winter Soldier thing? Oh no.
Yeah, it's really funny. Because for folks that don't know, Brubaker had the big Winter Soldier run that everybody loves.
yeah, and Leonard Vole says that it's worth noting that they did greenlight 2 seasons at once, so Tim and company probably took that into consideration while planning out the first.
I forgot about that. That's right. That was announced early on. My hope would be that Rucka would get the show running duties, or the head writing duties. I should say. Although anybody that's complaining that this is too cop-centered, you're not going to like it as much if Rucka takes over. But yeah, Chewbacca's Lover, sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as some of us did. One of my big things I meant to say when I did my sign flip too is that, yeah, I was talking a lot about how it reminded me just of Burton's characterization. But I was won over, and Connor, sorry for picking fights with you, but I was won over on the animation almost immediately. And maybe I should say less animation, but just storyboarding, where like I'm with Connor, I don't like how clean it looks. I've come to accept that that's just what modern animation looks like, and I don't know how you would make it look rougher without actually hand drawing it. Like, what I kept thinking about was anything you would do to try to make digital animation look less clean with this stuff, with as simple as your character models are, because they're real traditional Bruce Timm character models, which I love. I mean, everything visually about the show is what I love about animated series, and I did not expect it to be like visually and tonally as much of a like sequel to that show as it is. Like it kind of feels like a revival of that show in its way, without being in that continuity again, which is one of the things I loved about it. But I just feel like anything you would do to try to make it look dirtier would probably come off too artificial. You know, like you don't want to add grain and dust and stuff like artificially after the fact, and they're not going to spend the money to hand draw it.
Yeah, then it would take 8 years.
Well, no, sure, and it's like I think it's a well-designed show. Well designed. The animation was like very like kind of like the straight-to-video movies where a lot of the actions feel like isolated things. Like there's a dinner scene where it's like the person's arm looks like it's moving, but the body isn't. You know, and it's like
I didn't even notice
coming up
like
from
that.
underneath the frame, and it looks like a sock puppet. I'm like, no, stop! What are you doing?
Well, see, when we got the trailers, I was complaining that the way everything moved and the character models and stuff looked too much like a lot of the direct-to-video animated movies that Bruce Timm worked on. And then immediately getting into the show, I felt like it was storyboarded more like animated series and less like those movies, where I think sometimes like corners are cut. And I wasn't seeing as much of that with this, and that made me excited. So you might be right that the animation is not as fluid as it might be, and you clearly noticed stuff I didn't. I was more excited about the storyboarding, just like how the quick cuts in action and stuff. It was more thrilling than I expected it to be.
Well, that first action sequence is well animated, and I think in the final episode, the stuff about the docks is also well animated. I think just in a lot of
everything in between sucks, though.
In a lot of the episodes, like there'll be like 1 or 2 sequences that are well animated, but then there'll be corner cutting on like dialogue scenes and stuff like that.
Okay.
The anime approach.
Let's watch some anime with Connor. Go ahead, Jason.
All right, we got a $5 super chat from Robert Wild.
Thanks, Robert.
Which villains do you guys want to see in season 2? I'm hoping for Hugo Strange, Black Mask, Scarecrow, and Dr. Death.
Dr. Death is a good idea.
And I said Black Mask when we talked about this sometime.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up for a super chat. That was one of the segments on my agenda for later on. But yeah, let's go round robin and just who's the first villain that comes to mind. Not and like it can be your favorite villain, but try to think of this in terms of characters that this show is that it's like most appropriate for this show. Let's start with Austin.
Well, I mean, the main thing is give Killer Croc his own episode, but
you at least got to see him.
I got to see him, yeah. I guess outside of that, besides Scarecrow, it's Ventriloquist. I'd like to see him in this show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thought it was really funny that somebody made a traditional Scarface reference.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was like, yeah, Scarface, and I was like, oh, there's a Batman villain named Scarface. So you live in a world where that movie exists, and that would be the original 30s Scarface that he's referencing, because that's the original gangster flick, which is wonderful. By the way, if you've never seen that, go watch that movie. But yeah, so you live in a world where you have that, and then you're going to have a villain eventually named Scarface. John, who do you want to see?
So Robert mentioned it, but I'm gonna second Scarecrow. And specifically, if they do Scarecrow, I want them to get Robert Englund to do the voice, because I've wanted that forever, and the only place I've gotten it is Injustice 2, which is fine, but like I want to see it in something with a story.
That would be awesome.
Dan.
Well, the Riddler is my favorite Batman villain, so I'd like to see him in this in some capacity. It'd be interesting to see like how they reinvent him. I like my Riddler traditional most of the time, but like the Reeves movie, for example, did like a cool new take on it. So I'm open-minded. We'll see what they do. As far as fitting the show and reinventing it, I feel like this show could do a cool like creepy reinvention of like Mad Hatter or something like that. You know, like a villain that's kind of like goofy, and I don't know, in the animated series I didn't feel like any of the Mad Hatter episodes were any of my favorite ones in particular, so I feel like they could do something like really different and make something cool with him. And I'd like to see Mr. Freeze too, because he's one of my favorite Batman villains too.
Yeah, good call. And I'm with you on Mad Hatter with the animated series, except I mean, like everybody, I love Perchance to Dream, but it's not really because of Mad Hatter. He just turns out to be the thing behind the whole thing. Dan, I have a prediction. If they do the Riddler in this show, he will start as a guy that writes crossword puzzles for the newspaper. I'm calling it now.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
My head went to newspapers with Riddler when he said that too.
They will totally do that. Yeah, I hadn't had that thought before, but that's gotta happen, right?
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Connor, who do you want?
I say Hugo Strange because I want the Monster Men. I really want to see it.
Yes.
A lot of people are clamoring for that. And Austin and I just reviewed Monster Men the other day, and everybody in that stream was like, why on earth is this not in the show yet? Like, it feels so much like an episode of this show. I kept conflating things that happen in the series with that comic, thinking that, because I was watching the show at the same time, thinking that they were all in the same piece.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I want to see, or at the very least, I want to see Batman go to war-torn, like, Europe, and go to, like, an Eastern European castle and find a vampire. That'd be awesome.
Oh, sure.
The show actually has precedence for that like kind of mystical element too. That would be really cool to do something with vampires.
Team up with Papa Midnight and fight some vampires. Let's do it.
Yeah, we did two somewhat mystical episodes in the show, which kind of surprised me. And I thought it was neat to do a whole episode about Batman trying to figure out what looks like a supernatural character, how that person is faking it, and then it turns out the answer is it's just a ghost. Like, I love that so much.
Batman the whole episode. Like, I was thinking this guy is a fraud, you know? Because I'm not really familiar with that character. I don't really know, or I didn't know much about Gentleman Ghost until I saw that episode, and I was like, how are we gonna Scooby-Doo this? Which grumpy old man is this gonna be? You know?
You're waiting for Batman to be like, it was really Old Man Jenkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Mascot.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that villain until this episode.
I've only seen him in Brave and the Bold. He shows up. He shows up in that show a few times, and it's kind of fun because Diedrich Bader is Two-Face in the show, and so it's kind of fun that they went to a villain that was a staple for that show.
Oh, cool. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that.
It was really nice seeing Bader playing somebody else in a Batman thing, and he disappears. Like, there's a couple places where it jumps out at me, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, it's Diedrich Bader. But like, he's such a good chameleon voice actor.
Isn't like half the male voice cast like they were Batman at one point? Like, I know,
like
DiMaggio's here.
DiMaggio, yeah. Well, DiMaggio was also a Joker, but yeah.
Right.
Well, and actually, the one word line we get for their Joker at the end, which, by the way, I'm just done with Joker setups at the end of the first Batman things. Like, I'm just done with it. But his one word line, it sounded like the DiMaggio Joker to me from Red Hood. And I don't know who that was. I didn't look up the voice of the one word he says. Jayson, who do you want to see besides Black Mask?
All right, so, I mean, the obvious one is Bane.
Yeah, that was mine. You took mine. Luchador Bane. You gotta have that.
Yeah, you gotta have a Luchador Bane, but Victor Zsasz.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
I kind of thought they were going to go to him when they had that shot of the, like, scratch marks, the tally marks on the prison cell in that one episode. I forget who it was that they went into the prison cell of. But I was like, oh, is this Victor Zsasz? And then it wasn't.
Was it just when they went to Firebug, or was it a different...
I think it was Firebug, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be Calendar Man.
Oh, that would have been cool, too.
Or, I guess this isn't as much a Batman villain, but, like, he starts as one. Deadshot?
Well,
that would be a 30s.
He's here for 3 seconds. It's really weird. Did you notice it?
I didn't.
Yeah, okay, so...
Is he in there?
Yes, the first... the first assassin that goes after Gordon in the episode where everybody's after Gordon with Onomatopoeia is Floyd Lawton. That's Deadshot.
And he's in the top hat look. So he'll show back up in the Deadshot costume next time.
Yeah, like, and they've got to go to him because I'm sure Deadshot fans looked at that and was like, well, this is really lame. He got taken out in 3 seconds, and they're like, oh, Floyd Lawton. It's like, do you really want Deadshot to just be a reference? If you're a Deadshot
He shows up and he immediately misses his only shot.
Yeah. So you did sort of get Deadshot, but it was very lame.
Okay. We get proper Deadshot next time.
Yeah, next time he's coming back for revenge, like the Englehart run.
Well, I'm going to be as predictable as humanly possible. I want Clock King in the show. I love Clock King, but I think he could be great in this. I want Film Freak.
Film Freak.
There's this really obscure Batman villain named Film Freak. And we've got a Hollywood episode in this, and I think it would be really fun if he showed up and he was like the successor to Matt Hagen, and he was like obsessed with Matt Hagen and was upset that he got like drummed out of Hollywood. I think that'd be really funny.
That would be funny.
And then, I mean, there's a ton of stuff you could go to. Hugo Strange is almost a certainty for the next season. I would think. Be really weird if they
seems
didn't
like a big deal.
do that very next.
Scarecrow definitely is, because we name drop him.
And yeah, Crane is in here. Well, and I was also gonna say I would think we would maybe next season get a Jeremiah Arkham, and we would like do some Arkham stuff.
Maybe it does feel like this show is maybe gonna do the spectacular thing where we're like the world building side. We're name dropping villains that will be, in it later, the way that show does.
Yeah.
Could we get a Ra's al Ghul?
I mean, yeah, I think anything's possible.
With the mystical stuff, I feel like there's, again, precedence for that, so I could see it happening. For sure.
I also think there's
you could do that, like, European castle thing, too, with Ra's al Ghul.
I had the same thought when you said that, yeah. I would be shocked if you didn't see Zatanna next season. It's not a villain,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
Well, Paul Dini's not here, so maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Bruce Timm is though. So.
Tomorrow they'll announce that Paul Dini's replacing Ed Brubaker. We're writing off Renee Montoya and bringing in Zatanna.
Oh, that was my other prediction: is Renee Montoya will leave the Force at some point and become the Question.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to happen.
I guarantee you that happens. Connor!
It'll be in the Riddler episode, too.
Why do you say that?
So that you can have the Riddler versus the Question.
That'd be great, yeah. They'll also introduce the Riddler when they finally do the Joker, and they'll just start with War of Jokes and Riddles.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Connor.
I also hope that one of the kids from
I'm gonna talk to Connor sometime.
What's her name's orphanage, the Robin producing machine orphanage, that all of the kids are Robins.
I'm sure that's polarizing. I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah.
That really
it was
got
cool
me.
to see Carrie Kelly fight Nocturne in that episode. That was really cool.
But yeah, Dan, that was Leslie Tompkins, who
that's her name.
Who I was expecting to see the whole season, and when we got, I don't know if anybody else had this. When there's that episode where Bruce goes, it's Gentleman Ghost. When Bruce is investigating the family crest, and he goes to the library, and there's the elderly lady librarian there. I thought that was going to be Leslie Tompkins. And then when we actually get to Leslie Tompkins, I was kind of surprised that they went ahead and did that. And I thought that she would know he was Batman already, and that doesn't happen. Because usually,
she wasn't dating Jim Gordon.
No, you don't be surprised by that. They're not going to take their cues from Gotham, thank God. They're not doing the thing that My Adventures with Superman does, where they take some of the worst ideas from, like, BVS and Smallville and make them actually work. This show is just avoiding them entirely.
I want someone to make Batman hitting Superman with a sink work.
I want...
Dan, you can make anything work. You can make that. Challenge accepted. I'm going to write that story.
Well, I think the way to make it work is bring in Superman next season and introduce the voice actor by having a little clip of this Batman hitting him over the head with a sink while the actor reads out who the actor playing Superman is.
Yeah, I think the reason that didn't work, that teaser, is because the reason this voice works is because you have a Batman that doesn't talk very much. He's really monosyllabic, and it's this wonderful, like, super dry, understated kind of vocal performance. Like, the way I keep thinking about it is, and I think the reason I fell in love with it, because I love it, and I'm starting to read Batman comics with his voice in my head, which is like the biggest testament to how good it is I can throw at it. I keep thinking it's what you would sound like if you never got over your parents' murder. It's like it's like that's what he's telling himself every time he speaks a line, is my parents just got murdered, go. And, like, I know that's Batman's characterization, but I've never heard a vocal performance that feels as much like that as what he's doing. It's like he really, literally never got over it. And
well,
that's
then
what
he does a really good job selling
like.
How fake his version of Bruce Wayne is.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I was going to say,
Yep.
Austin. I totally agree.
I love that part when he gets... it's in the first episode when he, like, dives into the water to get away from Penguin, and he climbs up over onto the yacht again, and he turns to Barbara, and he's like, haha, it's not a yacht party until somebody falls into the water, am I right?
And then he comes back and says it again?
Yeah, she's like, whatever. Like, and then the two, like, bimbos walk up to him, and he's like, haha, it's not a yacht party until someone falls off, right?
I love how he just keeps saying that to people. It's hilarious.
And the goofy fake smile he gives the first time we see him on that boat, where he just turns around, he's like, you're like, it's so funny.
Yeah, I love that in this characterization of Batman, at least so far, the Bruce Wayne persona is completely a farce.
Completely.
And it's shallow kind of because he's so walled off, he doesn't really know how to have a, like, functional social personality, but it also works for what he's doing because the Bruce Wayne that he plays is like a vapid, like, California guy, you know, like doesn't really think about much other than like hot women and money, and he's just like, hey, I'm here to have a good time, you know, like that's who his Bruce Wayne is. And I really enjoyed that aspect of his performance.
Well, I love how traditional that is. Like, I've missed that.
Yeah.
And I also like how superficial he plays it, but there's all this like reference to like subtle nods to how deep he really is, and so you get this kind of overall sense of it without actually living with him, which is really impressive. Like, you get that moment where Leslie Tompkins is like, "Don't let him fool you. I know what he's doing." With the orphanage, where she's like, well, he wouldn't, like, he gave all this money to an orphanage because of what happened to his parents. Like, everybody thinks he's superficial and just throwing his money around, but she's like, no, there's more to this guy. Like, I can see it. And I love how subtle that was with her, because she's traditionally another confidant for Bruce Wayne and knows he's Batman. And we haven't gotten to that yet, but like, I loved that moment. And it's real blink and you miss it. I don't know that everybody would catch that.
Yeah, no, I really liked that too. I really liked in the Harley Quinn episodes where she gets really frustrated that he won't go below the surface of anything with her, and she's like, "This is a complete waste of my time and your time. I don't know what we're trying to accomplish here," you know?
Okay, but is anybody else a little surprised that she doesn't at any point press the button to get the restraints on his arms and then send him to the playpen?
Yeah,
I had that thought, as well as it feels like there was probably an idea at some point that she figures out that he's Batman.
Oh,
because I feel like she should have figured it out, because she talks about how she profiled Batman, but then she also profiled Bruce Wayne.
That's a great point. And
the way she talks to them both the same way, but there's no indicator that she actually knows. So I thought that was a little weird.
She has all this insight into how Batman operates. And
she talks about childhood trauma the same way she did with Bruce.
Yeah, that's right.
And I really like that the way that we get to Harley is that he punches someone in the face for bad mouthing Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, that's great. And I love all the mirror parallels with Harley Quinn. Like, I really with Bruce Wayne, that's not a thing I would have ever expected to see done with her. And it's also really interesting because she's a psychiatrist and is getting under his skin and getting his psychology. But like, and I don't, like, every Batman is in some way or Batman villain is in some way a mirror for Batman. But I thought it was really interesting all the ways that you can parallel them, where she is like also got a secret identity and her own lair, and has a persona where she's pretending. But the difference between her and Bruce Wayne is, Dan, to your point earlier, she's not completely shallow as Harley Quinn, because when you get to the end, and she's wearing her Harley Quinn suit but missing the mask, and is there with Barbara Gordon, she's not being Harley Quinn that whole time. She goes back to the Harley Quinzel persona. So clearly she's some mix of both of those.
Yeah, honestly, this is the most I've liked Harley Quinn in anything. Like, I'm not like opposed to any of her other portrayals and things. I've just never been like a big fan of the character. I'm kind of neutral on her in general. And I liked the whole angle of her using her skill as a psychologist to like brainwash people and stuff like that. I thought that was a really interesting way to take the character.
It's a reinvention that I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Connor.
Oh, I was just going to say I completely agree with Dan. That's the character I've typically not really cared much for, and I think has really struggled being that character apart from the Joker. And this reinvention completely worked for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel like it's a reinvention she's needed for like 20 years, where we don't want to just play through the same story over and over again. So we keep trying to separate her, but she doesn't work as her own character. And this just comes out and they go, look, this is how you make it work. And I think it's really great.
Well, and it seems effortless to me because it's all right there in the first place. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Harley Quinn should be a traditional Batman villain. She's a twisted psychologist. Like, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I don't know if anybody was looking at this show. I don't know why they would, but like the closest thing I've seen to this is the way she's handled in the live-action Birds of Prey TV show, where she actually has the same thing, where she is, and in that she's the Huntress's psychiatrist, like she is Bruce Wayne's in this, and yeah, and she is Harley Quinn at the same time as she's Harley Quinzel, and she's got the alter ego. And I thought it was really cool that we went there with this, but I thought when we got her episode, it was going to be an origin thing. I didn't realize that she was actually going to have had the other, persona the whole time.
I also liked that. I mean, one of my kind of things with the prior portrayals, maybe not so much in the original animated series appearances, but like in the subsequent ones that DC, has had when she's had her own series, and she for a while was pushed as like one of their most popular characters or whatever. She doesn't really act like a psychologist. Like, she's just kind of like a ditzy girl that likes to have fun when she's Harley Quinn. And if in those stuff I've read or seen anyway, if you didn't know she was a psychologist, I think that would be lost on people if that was their first like encounter with the character.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that was like a big part of why she and what her modus operandi is and like what motivates her and stuff. I thought it was really cool.
I think for the most part, we tend to use that more for like jokes. Like you have stuff like that Assault on Arkham movie where she acts crazy the whole time, and then I forget, Captain Boomerang says something about her being a psychologist, and she's like, "Yeah, well, this is what throwing boomerangs means about you. Like, it means you can't let go of things; they have to come back." And we do that with her a lot, where it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Well, this builds a character out of that.
I agree.
Well, very often we have to come up with excuses for it because writers can't figure out how to make it make sense that somebody that is like that ditzy and clearly doesn't seem very well educated even was a psychiatrist that would work at Arkham Asylum. So sometimes we just say she was really bad at it. Like that's a thing we'll do. And then sometimes we'll say she used to have one personality and it was completely changed when the Joker got his hands on her. That's the other way we'll do it. Here, like, I thought this was a really natural thing to do with it. And like, she's a very different character, but it still starts from some of those same places. Where she is a psychiatrist that realizes that she lives in a real corrupt, messed up city, and in her own way, she kind of thinks she's trying to do what Batman's doing. She's just really extreme and nuts about it. The only criticism I have is I want at least some inkling of a backstory for her. I'm not sure how she got to all of that. I don't know why she's so extreme over anybody else, and I also don't know how she got the resources to have her own facility.
I think she took over that other guy's his house. So I think she is like used his fortune and like brainwashed him to help.
Oh, is that what I missed that? Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
I figured that's what was
back on her.
No, I'm with you though. I would have liked to see maybe her get a two-parter where we go more into the origin, because I don't know. It feels like out of nowhere. It's like, oh well, it's Harley Quinn, so here's Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and like, is she just putting on a like a voice and a facade and stuff when she's in her Harley Quinn persona, or is that more the way she sees herself? Like, I'm a little lost on that. And like I said, it seems like it's some blend of the two, but I don't know how she sees herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys, I didn't like Harley Quinn at all.
I thought
yeah, jump in here, Jayson.
I thought she was really annoying, and I didn't like her episode at all. I thought it wasn't well written at all, and I didn't like how they handled any of the like people that she was like mind controlling or whatever. And I didn't like what they did with her. I don't know if like maybe if they do something more with her that's like better than what they did, maybe I will grow into like liking her, but from what I got, I didn't like her. I don't know.
Does any of that have to do with prior portrayals, or would you feel the same way if this was the first time you were introduced to a character named Harley Quinn?
Yeah, I would feel the same way, cause she's not Harley Quinn, but I just don't like her as a character in this. I don't think she.
Did you have that from her introduction before you even got to the costume stuff?
I thought.
I mean, when you say she's annoying, is it Harley Quinzel that's annoying, or is it the costume stuff?
It's both, but I feel like it's more her like Harley Quinn side of things. I just feel like we could have had a good character that wasn't Harley Quinn, but we chose to do that. And so it's like I'm not the biggest Harley Quinn fan anyway.
Okay.
But I didn't like how they did her, and I didn't think she was very fun.
I'm not in love with the reinvention, but to Jason's point, you could have also done Hugo Strange here and kept the similar kind of episode.
Yeah.
Which I think I would have liked more.
Is there a worry
like
that
Harleen Quinzel?
Yeah.
I'm not so wild about just the Harley Quinn part.
Is there a worry that there will be a double step or like a double beat when we get to Hugo
not
Strange?
Not unless you do the monster, man.
Darn it! I keep freezing up right when I needed to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Connor.
But no, it's like I was thinking about that too. Like, is it just like a double beat of it? No, it forces Hugo Strange to be the mad scientist.
Yeah.
Like that's what I kind of like when you said it in this era. I like putting Harley Quinn in sort of like a Hugo Strange role in this era, because then you can do a mad scientist and it could be Dr. Death or it could be Hugo Strange doing like Monster Men or something. So anyways, that's what I was kind of thinking, but I can understand why you'd have that reservation, John.
So is Harley Quinn
she's in a way a combination of Hugo Strange and Scarecrow, because you're also dealing with like some of the fear stuff with what she's doing.
Yeah. So, Connor, is Harley Quinn gonna come back and become obsessed with Batman and put on a bat suit and want to be Batman? Is that what she's gonna do?
Well, we can only hope.
She'll be the first Batgirl before Barbara takes over.
I'm fine with that. I would love that. Hey, Connor, that was the big question I was going to ask you a few minutes ago when I said your name 5 times and wasn't able to ask you a question. Were you shocked that we don't have a Batgirl by the end of the season? Because you and I were talking off camera, and you were like, "I assume she'll be bad," and I had already seen the end, so I couldn't tell you anything. But you were just coming into 8, and you were like, "I assume she'll be Batgirl." And I'm like, "Well, that's not going to happen."
I was surprised. Yeah, it does keep me interested to know if they even go that route or if they'll do something different. Because they do seem like they're not really. Yeah, because it's like the one Robin who's conspicuous. Well, there's 2 that are conspicuously absent. There's Tim Drake and then Damian, but I don't see them doing Damian at all. So I imagine if we do a Robin, that would be insane. But I think we'll do Tim. But if we don't do Tim, I was assuming that we weren't doing a Robin because we were going to do a Batgirl. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. But I was surprised.
I think you could see this entire show go like 4 or 5 seasons and never have a Bat family.
I think we.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, Austin. What'd you say?
I just said I think we could get Oracle
instead of Batgirl.
Yeah.
I had that thought.
Robert Wilder too.
I had the thought that we might get to Oracle. I didn't have the thought that we wouldn't put her in the costume. That would be, that seems plausible. Yeah.
Especially like, what if that's like the big like Joker episode? You know, maybe that's like the first episode of the second the second season.
Like the first time we see Joker, he shoots Barbara Gordon.
He shoots.
And given that she's a DA, that would not be hard to contrive at all.
No,
definitely not.
He doesn't have to go to her house. He could do it anywhere.
He could do it in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I just hope that for the future seasons, each season starts with Batman going to Leslie Tompkins asking for a new Robin.
She's just going to the Robin claw machine. This is like pulls out a Robin.
He starts with Jayson, he dies, and he's like, "Leslie, I need another one. I need a replacement. The one you gave me didn't work.
The one you gave me is broken. I need another one."
To be different, I wondered if they might put Carrie Kelly in this, like eventually, like just because that's like one of the Robins we haven't seen out of like specific adaptations of that book, you know. I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that if they did it well.
I laughed so hard when we got to her. I just couldn't even believe it. Like, it was already the orphanage of Robins, and then when they start yelling Carrie, I was like, "Are you serious?" Like,
She
we're
even
going
had her little slingshot.
She's got the slingshot. She's got her glasses.
The one that has like their defining Robin feature.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see this show do Carrie Kelly.
My thing with the orphanage is I think that's the show coming out and saying we're not going to do a Robin.
Yep.
I could be wrong.
That's what I think.
Maybe so.
But I love the idea that there's just an orphanage with every Robin. That is one of the famous ideas in the show.
Well, and everybody is speculating. Well, it's also kind of fun that Bruce Wayne is. I just had this thought. Bruce Wayne's giving all this money to an orphanage, and he's supporting the Robins. And like they might never become Robins, but like he's directly influencing their lives anyway. Like that's kind of interesting. But I was just gonna say I'm hearing a lot of people speculating that, well, surely you didn't have Tim Drake there. He was conspicuously missing, like somebody said, because that's the Robin will do. I figured it was just like the age difference thing. I figured they were just thinking like. These Robins, where we would have them, like at this point, would more or less be all about the same age. But then we're also messing with ages throughout this. I mean, it is a reinvention, so like maybe not. But
even with the age thing, you've got like we mentioned, Kelly, which would be a totally different like time period if you're going by the comics.
Well, yeah, sure, but I just mean based on like what. The age she is when we meet her. I mean, she's still more or less probably the age that Dick Grayson is when we first meet him.
I just like to imagine it's DC continuing not to know what to do with Tim Drake. They're like, wait, we have a character named Tim Drake?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just sad.
Well, because I was going to say maybe it's also because they did him in their other show, but obviously they did Dick Grayson too, so.
Tim Drake's parents haven't died yet, so he's stuck at home.
I did wonder if...
That's a good point. That's probably what it is. But then, so I had that thought too, but like, Stephanie Brown's not an orphan.
Oh, but her parents already died in this continuity. Tim Drake will be in the orphanage next season.
Yeah, because Stephanie Brown's father, for people that don't know, is Cluemaster. But anyway, I'm sorry, Dan, what were you saying?
I do wonder if, because of the era we're in, they might try to do some kind of reinvention of Red Hood. I don't know if it'll be Jason Todd, but I could see them, because that's... Did they do a Red Hood episode in the animated series show? Like with...
No.
That's a villain I could see them doing in future stuff. That might be cool.
No,
that's what I said too. Like when we were speculating about this. I don't know if we were doing that on a stream.
We were doing it on a stream.
Was it on a Captain Logan show or something?
No, it was when we were watching the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
And so we didn't know that they were going to have Joker at the end. I don't know how I feel about that you're not doing the classic Batman dropped him in a vat. But maybe it's possible he did. We could do a flashback where we did have Red Hood. That's actually entirely plausible.
Yeah, I don't even know if it could be a whole new character, it disconnected from the Joker or something. I would like to see something similar to like what Grant Morrison did with Red Hood in his Batman and Robin run, where he really tried to make Jason Todd into a villainous figure. I thought all that stuff was really interesting. Obviously, they probably won't do Jason Todd as like a Robin beforehand, and as Red Hood, but something that like makes Red Hood an interesting villain in his own right, disconnected from the Joker, I feel like would be cool.
Well, he'd have to be somebody else in this show unless you did a big time jump, because their Jason Todd is like 9.
Yeah.
But and also to your point, Dan, I guess the point I was making was whether you do Red Hood or not. I just don't know how I feel about doing this classic looking and feeling of a Batman and not having Batman responsible for creating the Joker at all.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah, they could flash back to it because it is a pre-established Batman.
Yep. And it's
maybe
a real
they'll go
early
to the
Batman.
other redhead, Jim Corrigan, and he'll be the Red Hood.
Sure. It is a real early Batman, but I like that it's not origin territory and that he's pre-established. But I also like the change in status quo with it, where he starts off as an urban legend, and then as we go along, he becomes a public figure, and everybody knows for sure that he exists. I love that whole thing where he tells the photographer. I like these subtle characters that keep
who is Plastic Man
winning their way in and out. Oh, is that who that is? I missed that.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Where?
I like the bit where he goes to the photographer and he's like, make sure that these pictures run, and he's like, well, what about the ones with you? And he's like, I don't care. And then later Alfred's like, that's gonna bite you in the ass, and he's like, I know, it's fine.
Yeah, Dad, let's go to the rest of these super chats.
Oh yeah, sure, keep us on track, man.
Yes. All right, we got a $5 super chat. Nope, a $2 super chat from Goofster123.
Thanks, man.
Does this Batman ever get a Robin?
Yes.
He's got like 6 of them waiting at the orphanage.
Yeah, we didn't just talk about that for a minute. I don't think so. I'm gonna go on records. I'm gonna lose this bet probably. I'm not gonna bet any real money on this. I don't think this Batman ever has a Robin.
No, he has 6.
I don't think they'll do it. Is anybody else with me, or am I alone? Well, yeah. Austin clearly agrees because he said that's the reason they did the orphanage. But
in all seriousness, I could see them foregoing Robin. But I think that they left themselves an out, like, because Tim Drake hasn't been referenced. They could do like animated series did, where they like combine origins and maybe like mix Tim and Dick Grayson stories together.
Or what if they I don't know.
And we're in a world where we'll buy that he came from the circus because there's still circuses.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Could they do like a Nightwing, but not Robin?
Oh, sure. But again, he'd have to not be Tim Drake. The problem is you have to do a time jump now, or it has to be a different character. So now you're talking about Tim Drake as Nightwing.
Yep.
Is essentially what you're talking
But
about.
that's who they'll take from the Smallville comics. That's who Barbara Gordon will be, as Nightwing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Smallville did that. Or you could have Tim Drake become a Red Robin and be his own thing in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, and
Only if he has
go to
that new
Tim
52
Drake and
music with
give
the
him-
terrible wings.
No, stop it.
Yeah.
It sucks. Sorry, Austin, what were you saying?
No, I said if we go to Tim Drake and give him the circus backstory, that can be Killer Croc making Robin. So
It could.
Down with
What did you think of doing human-looking Killer Croc?
I didn't love his design, but I also am kind of mixed on the TAS Killer Croc design, so just kind of fit in with that.
Well,
But I
you
liked
remember
that
when
he was
we
here.
reviewed Nightfall? He looks a lot like the Nightfall Killer Croc,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
which is also a design I don't like, but he did kind of look like that.
But I like him in Nightfall. Maybe I should go back and look at his design, and maybe it'll win me over. But I just hope he gets more to do, because he's Batman's best villain.
My bet is we will get a Robin, and it will be Tim Drake. That's my guess.
You think so?
Yeah.
Maybe so. I don't think we'll do Batgirl, especially after Austin said the thing about Oracle. I think he's right about that.
Oh, I don't know.
But it's 1940s, so she's just an operator, and she works in a library, so that's how she looks things up.
I could see Barbara transitioning into some sort of role outside of the justice system eventually, especially given I really liked what they did with her character in the show, particularly because she's more idealistic than her father because she has less experience, and she kind of buys into this idea that we've seen in our political culture in recent years, where all criminals are thought to be victims of circumstance, and she kind of has that perspective, and Jim Gordon's like, no, some people are just bad people and they need to go to jail. And she's like, Dad, you're too hard on people and all this kind of stuff. And the point of the episode is to show her that no, her dad is actually right. There is evil that needs to be confronted in the city. And Batman obviously believes that as well. And he's kind of more extreme than Jim in the sense that Gordon thinks the system is still can be saved to some degree. Batman believes he needs to operate outside of it. Maybe his daughter will find that she agrees with Batman more than her dad as the show goes on. I mean, that would be interesting,
Yeah,
I was shocked
or she
when
goes
that
that way because she decides that the way her father is running the police force is is too black and white, and she thinks she has to work outside of the system in order to be more altruistic and compassionate. Even like that would be another reason to put on a costume.
It would be, and I do like that she is more compassionate than her dad in that way, because, you know, like she is. It's both of the sides of that argument have merit. I think there are a lot of people that are caught up in the justice system that are criminals, that are victims of circumstance, that, like, you know, do bad things because they're forced to. But then there are other people who are not victims of circumstance and are just kind of bad people. And I like that kind of ideological conflict she has with her dad. It's really poignant. Like, I didn't expect a cartoon show like this to go that far. That's what I like about the show. It does confront some more adult themes than the animated series was able to, because of its position as a kids show primarily.
Well, I was shocked.
I think they both have points with that.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, I like the nuance of that, Dan, because you're right that at the end of the day, Jim Gordon is right about what he's saying, but she's also right. Like, there is a midpoint between them. Like, the guy that she helped not go to prison at the beginning of that episode, she's probably right about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Austin.
You get the... Oh, sorry, Austin.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I was shocked in, 2024, we did an episode where one person says the crime is black and white, and the episode did not end with, look how wrong you are about this, Jim Gordon. I was kind of shocked we went to that place. And there is truth to both of them, but the lesson is ultimately on Barbara.
Yeah.
Well, what I liked is that I obviously appreciated the nuance of the episode, but the other thing I liked is that Barbara, in kind of coming to the middle, realizes that's actually where her dad was, and he's not as maybe as hard on it, and he probably kind of has, to her, seems like really hard lined on it, but it's through experience, and so he does actually have that compassion in him that she has as well, but she just didn't see that, and so that was a pretty cool aspect of that story.
Yeah, he's not lost himself or anything. It's not like he's gotten too hardened being in Gotham. He just understands more than she does about some of the people there and how actually, honest to God, kind of terrible and evil they are.
And I find that thing really relatable. I mean, how many times have you, as a young person, looked at your parents and been like, you are old and don't understand the way the world works, and then you go out into the world and you're like, oh, my parents were actually correct about the things they were telling me, I mean, that's happened to me.
Yes.
They're also both naive about different things, because when we get the episode later where we think everybody's after him and then it turns out to be her, he is naive about what he can handle and about his own power, which is real traditional Jim Gordon, by the way.
Well, that's the same episode too.
It is the same episode. That's right.
Yeah, because you get that really nice moment where he's ready to just go to war in their front yard.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, but our neighbor's right there, sleeping. You're gonna put all these people in danger.
Yeah, and then it was a really nice twist by the end, which I didn't call, that it was actually Barbara Gordon that the hit was out on. Maybe a little convenient that everybody just says Gordon the whole episode, so nobody knows who's actually after it. But I thought that might also be kind of on purpose. From the person that put the hit out, I wasn't really sure.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I'm sure maybe it was part of it. Either way, they're taking out an honest either lawyer or cop in the city, which helps the more corrupt criminals and politicians stay in power, and you get one of the best villains of the season. So
it's a great way to twist the knife with Gordon a little bit, because it's he keeps saying, no, don't worry about me, it's fine, knowing that people are after him, and then it turns out it's his daughter, and if he'd known that, he would have had a very different attitude about the whole thing.
Absolutely.
And to John's point about the great villain, how cool is it that as heavy as that episode is, then you get Automatopoeia, which is just hilarious. And one of I love the levity with that stuff, and that's also a very animated series where you have this kind of juxtaposition where there's a really goofy thing that makes you laugh. That's a lot of fun in the middle of something for children's television back then. pretty heavy and sometimes unnerving.
The the last fight with him and Batman, where Batman just goes pow, or I forget what exactly noise he makes, made me laugh really because the way that voice doing that was really funny.
Pow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
McKenna Grace.
Jayson was very excited about Onomatopoeia.
Yes.
He's great.
That was one of my favorite episodes.
Did you know him?
Yeah, I did.
From what?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know that he's around, and I think I must have read something with him in it or something.
Because is that a Kevin Smith creation? Or does Kevin Smith just bring him back from something?
No, it's Kevin Smith and a Green Arrow villain.
Just like Clock King. So look, we've got that precedence. We might still get Clock King.
They're like, Green Arrow had an entire show that was just a Batman show. We got to steal something from him for our Batman show.
Oh, when we were talking about villains we want to see, I can't believe I didn't bring up 60s villains, because it was wonderful to see King Tut. And I said going into this I was hoping for some 60s Batman villains, and we did get King Tut. The whole episode's not about him, but he's got a fun little ongoing cameo. I want Bookworm. I think Bookworm is perfect for this show.
That can be in the Oracle episode when she works in the library and has to look up books. Bookworm is the other guy that works in the library.
You know what? Barbara Gordon becoming
stealing books.
But Barbara, I know you're joking, but Barbara Gordon becoming Oracle working in a library is perfect, because that character originally is a librarian. Because Barbara Gordon, for people that don't know, is actually invented by William Dozier for the 60s show. And so our very first Barbara Gordon works at a library. And so it'd be... And I always wondered if that's part of where the Oracle thing comes from, where she's just, like, book smart, and so she becomes a computer genius. But yeah, bringing her back to the library, that'd be awesome. And there was a Dozier reference in this show. That made me happy. I don't know if anybody caught that. But one of our obligatory street corners was something in Dozier, and I was like, yes.
I noticed that, and I was like, that name sounded familiar, and I couldn't remember how it was connected. But I did notice that name.
The creator and executive producer of 60s Batman, and also the uncredited narrator voice. Every time you hear the narrator, that is Bill Dozier.
Cool.
So yeah, that was exciting. There was another cool, kind of surprising reference with an obligatory street corner. I wrote it down.
I feel like I caught a couple of them,
like,
but I can't remember now.
The 66 screen. Oh, Nicholson. That's what it was. There was a Nicholson one. But what 60s screen thing?
I guess it's just a map of the city. He's got like the map where it's like translucent and it's got all the streets and stuff.
Now, to be fair,
at first I said a screen, but it is a map, I think.
It's glass. That is in the 60s show, but I might be wrong. I think there might be something that predates it. I think it might show up in one of the serials.
Possibly, but we shoot it like exactly like the way the 66 does.
And he's got the file cabinets like in the serials, and that was exciting. He's got so many file cabinets in his Batcave. And he never opens one. The whole season, he never opens a file cabinet.
That's why he needs Oracle. Somebody has to go through his file.
We don't even go to Wayne Manor, really, do we? Like, aside from like a flashback, we don't even go into Wayne Manor.
That's
true. I want to say there's a scene... That scene with Lucius Fox talking to Alfred, is that in Wayne Manor, or is that at Wayne Enterprises or something?
I can't remember.
It
was something I was kind of...
I'm sorry, Connor, you froze on us. What was that?
Of course. It was something I noticed halfway through. I could be wrong. But yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. I can't remember where that scene took place. Also, I hope we continue the tradition of whenever there's a character we can't decide what to do with, we just make them a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because I know Toon is not a pattern make, but Lucius Fox and Barbara Gordon are both lawyers in this show.
Lucius Fox. He's in this.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. I feel like he could have been a bigger character, but, you know. Like,
yeah, he's a little bit involved in the plot of the Gentleman Ghost one, but that was about it.
Well, they do a lot more with him than they do in the animated series.
That's true.
Is he even in that show?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He is, but like probably 3 or 4 episodes total. He's not in a lot of that. Okay, do we have more questions?
We have 4 more super chats.
Oh goodness. Okay, let's do that. And then if you see pre-written questions or comments that take us to aspects that we haven't talked about yet, we should do that. Sure. And then I'll go around and ask everybody what their favorite and least favorite episodes are. We should do that too.
All right.
Got 15 minutes before we hit 2 hours. We'll try to end off around there. Go ahead.
Oh, 15 minutes to do all that. Okay.
Oh, we can do it.
All right. $5, Dan Schneider.
I'm sorry, I'm naive, like Barbara Gordon. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. $5, Dan Schneider. It's not an aesthetic choice. They made a big deal about it taking place in the 1940s before it came out. It's the big thing they sold it on.
Okay, how do you guys feel about that whole thing? Because I will say, I did come into this thinking that it was supposed to be flat out that period, and it seemed like that was the way they were talking about it and selling it. But I adjusted to it midway through. How do you guys feel about it?
For me personally, I view the settings of the DC superheroes as like timeless fictional places. Like Gotham City is everything that's like evil about city life, and Metropolis is everything that is hopeful and optimistic and future looking about American city life. So, I mean, it aesthetically looking like the 40s and then having slightly different social politics than the exact era didn't bother me, because I already see these places in my mind personally as like fictional entities. Like they're not supposed to be realistic. So it didn't really bother me that much.
Is it a problem then if you have period references? Like, should you avoid them? Because this show doesn't do a lot of that, but it does in some places. In the Clayface episode, which we haven't really talked about very much, there are references to period actors, and Edith Head comes up. And that's one of the things that made me think we were just straight flat up in the 40s. But I guess it's a heightened, reinvented version of it.
Yeah, see, that was my kind of vibe the whole show. Like, it was the 1940s, but like not like slightly not so in the way that the animated series was kind of like that too, you know, because there's like 40s gangster looking guys and old cars in the animated series, but it feels relatively timeless. It's just kind of like, you know, a dark superhero city, you know.
It's
so that's kind of how I did it.
Until the Riddler pulls out his VR.
Yeah.
Did that bother anybody in the panel?
It won me over. Like, at first, I kind of had the same thing you did, where I thought it was just going to be like a straight 40s piece. But I kind of picked up on it as soon as we met Barbara Gordon. I was like, oh, this doesn't seem like something that would have happened in the 40s, so I guess we're just kind of taking that aesthetic and doing our own thing. And now, I mean, at the end of the day, it's fine, because like I like the show. But I can definitely understand why people would be annoyed about it, because it can come off as like, we want to use this aesthetic, but we don't want to actually deal with like what life would have been like in this time period for these characters. But like I said, for me personally, it worked.
I do think with some things they're having their cake and eating it too a little bit. Like you said, John, it helps that I'm liking the show. If they were too blatant about the specific time period, it would feel disingenuous to me, and so I'm really glad that they're not doing that. Like, you don't want to be revisionist history and be like, this is what it was like back then, because it's not. It's like you don't want them to do that, but I don't think that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Dan on this one, because like it is like it's not a historical fiction. It's the 1940s of the DC universe, which does just kind of make it. You can say you can say that's what they're talking about in the interviews, but 98% of people who are watching this aren't going to be watching those interviews. I don't watch those interviews. I think the way it speaks.
I'm sorry, Connor. We missed some of that.
But... aesthetic. Yeah, I think you caught most of it. It's
Okay, what else? What if we got that we got to tackle there,
we
Jayson?
got a $499 super chat from Dubby.
Oh, thanks, Dubby. Good to see you, man.
Would Zack Snyder do a good job adapting this to
No.
a live-action, terrible 4-hour Netflix movie with an R-rated director's cut?
Would Zack Snyder do a
the
good
answer is
job
yes.
making the stupid, lengthy nonsense that he always? Yes, sure.
He would do a good job for him.
That's like saying. So would Zack Snyder make this self-indulgent? Yes.
He did ask if he would do a good job making this a terrible live-action 4-hour R-rated film, so the answer is yes.
Yes.
He would do a good job making it terrible, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
extremely awkward sex scene.
Ooh,
I'm sorry.
you finally get the Gordon and Leslie Tompkins sex scene.
No, Dan, I missed what you said, man.
Oh no, I was just saying Zack Snyder's a very interesting fella. I was convinced that he was a genius relatively recently in an interview where he was talking about the first time he watched Star Wars, and he was like, my view of it was when Luke walked in the cantina and talked to the walrus face man, I thought to myself, is this sexual? And I was like, this man's a genius.
Oh my God. Jayson,
Yes.
for the love of God, help us move on.
All right, well, $2 super chat from Dubby.
Thanks, Dubby. Please don't bring up Zack Snyder anymore.
And he asks, Sam Witwicky as Robin, perhaps?
Whitwer? Not Whitwer. Oh, wait, not Sam Witwer.
Wait, I think he means Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, does he mean Shia LaBeouf or does he mean Sam Witwer and he wrote the character from Transformers?
Yeah,
Like, it could be
that's what
either.
Is he...
I really hope it is just Sam Witwicky as Robin. I want to see that now.
Why does that... Why is it that all he wants to talk about is horrible, self-indulgent, lengthy action movies? What is that about?
Robin, come.
Well, now I just want that teaser for season 2 to have Sam Witwicky.
Yeah, that voice doesn't work reading a grocery list. Like, why did they do that? Anyway.
Potatoes. All right.
A
That was
dozen
probably
eggs.
the only contribution that J.J. Abrams made to the show. Like, that was his demand.
Hey, does anybody in the panel not share my affinity for the voice? Because I know some people are kind of on the fence or kind of not happy with it.
I liked it. I
It
thought...
grew on me, definitely. I didn't like it at first, but like as I started watched more, it's definitely grew on me. I don't know if it would make like even my top 5, but I like it for this show.
I like how young it feels. Whereas, like, he feels like he's in... I don't know, like, is this like a year 2 Batman? Or like a...
Probably. Or it could be in the middle of one.
Yeah.
I saw an interview where they called it a week 2 Batman, which I think makes sense with where we start.
Oh my God, he dropped Joker in a vat of acid in his very first week as Batman.
Yeah, that was Batman Day 1.
His first time out, he wasn't even wearing a bat suit. He had like the black leotard that he's wearing in Phantasm when he dropped Joker in the vat of acid.
That was when he had the
I hope
purple
so.
gloves. His purple gloves fell into the acid, and they're Joker's gloves now.
Oh,
Yeah,
Which is why Joker wears all purple.
Why
Yeah,
is
Dad.
it that it changed all the other colors but not the gloves? I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, Dad, I want like a 24 type thing where it's Batman Day 1.
And it's in
And
real time?
It's in real time.
Yes! Give me that.
Oh man.
It's like 24, but for Batman.
All right, we got a $2 super chat.
The following takes place between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Real time. Yeah. Man, I gotta watch that show more.
Give me that all day long.
We got another $2 super chat from
Yes, sir.
Dubby. And I
Oh.
don't really know what he's talking about.
Dubby
here,
is
but
taking over the program,
I
folks.
don't know what he's talking about here, but he says, would love to see Frobertson voice a villain.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Who's-
Just give me
Who's Robertson?
Robertson.
cut. That's a deep cut. That
Did-
was in my season of Who Reviews the Reviewers. He had to drop out of after the first round.
Oh, is that who he's talking
videos.
Oh.
Yeah. And he
Or
had
is this a
very, unique
coincidence?
voice.
So
I'm confident that's the case.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry.
so far this teaser is Sam Witwicky, Robertson.
Directed by Zack Snyder.
Oh no.
Did anybody else feel like there is some Pattinson in the characterization and even the voice a little bit, but I felt like just with certain line readings and just imagine what they look like on paper, occasionally I found myself thinking, this is what Christian Bale thought he was doing. Like, I was having that a little bit where it's not supposed to be like gruff and harsh. It's supposed to be like cold and detached. And that's what he thinks he's doing, but that's not what's happening. Sorry, Connor, what?
Well, I thought the voice was fine. To me, though, it did just kind of strike me as like they could have got Kevin Conroy if he was. They would have got Kevin Conroy if he was still alive. So it did kind of feel a little bit like that. But I don't know if that voice is just so influential that I haven't really listened to much animated voice acting for Batman outside of Conroy. So, but
I mean, not to split hairs or anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they cast this before he passed. But
Yeah, they did want him for a
Okay.
role, but he passed away before they could get him. Which makes me wonder who they would have cast him as.
it
good
would have
question.
been the voice of the actor who plays Grey Ghost. They would have done that again, but this time it's
Yeah,
instead of Adam
Did you
West.
catch the
I
Grey Ghost?
want Kevin
Yeah.
Conroy to be onomatopoeia.
There's
Who was that? They had to go to a different Batman.
there is a great Grey Ghost reference in this where Alfred
I
is
like that.
reading a Grey Ghost book. I don't know if you guys caught that, but
I did see that, yeah.
mystery book.
yeah, I think it was called Alias of the Grey Ghost.
Yes, I think you're right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll go full tilt and actually like do that serial, because it'd be kind of fun if they did that and they had that character in this, like the actor that plays him, because he would actually be like a star now.
Yeah. All right, we've got one more super chat.
Okay.
At least so far, and it is a
Thanks, guy.
$2 super chat from Dubby.
Okay, he's still taking over the show.
And he says,
He is the new White
He
Castle
says, "I
front.
don't know if I can get through this. Hold up, guys. I'm literally in a Papa John's right now."
Which will go into season 2. Which will go into
Papa
season
John's.
2 when we get Pennyworth. I'm literally in a Papa John's right now. With Sam Witwicky and Robertson.
W
I mean, I don't know. I
single-handedly
hope the guy, the
taking us
founder
off
of
the rails.
Papa John's is a villain in season 2, personally. That'd be awesome.
Sure. I can't believe I called him the new White Castle and then he brought up Papa John's.
Pizza themed villain.
Okay, I want to go around and see what everybody's least favorite episodes are. If you can't think of a least favorite, don't feel like you have to do that. We'll at least get favorites. Let's start with John.
Okay, so I have two that I can't pick between, and it's episode 2 and episode 7. Just because I love their Clayface and I love like the take on him with the like horror movie setting. But 7 also feels the most like an animated series episode, and it has a lot of my favorite moments from the show in general.
Interesting. I thought Nocturne was the most TAS of all of this.
Wait, I think that's what I'm talking about. Isn't that episode 7?
Yeah,
or am I
that's
getting
episode
my?
No, that's
8.
8.
Fraud.
Oh, okay. So it's episode
That's
8.
the
Sorry,
special.
I'm sorry.
You don't even know.
Look at an episode guide, you mook!
Oh, okay. I'll just leave. No,
Don't do that or it'll mess up our boxes!
Yeah, that's what you get.
I'm sorry, John. I thought you were I thought you were going to make a good argument for Moving Target being like a TAS episode because I can kind of see it.
I think there's elements of that, but it's mostly with Gordon, the Gordon stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I was thinking about episode 8, and Austin pointed this out to me. But episode 8 also has the Batman Returns like why'd you hit me? I'm a girl thing, but like it makes sense.
Yes.
Which I thought was funny. But no, I like a lot of episode 8. It's
because that's not because she's a girl; it's because she's a child.
Yeah. And then probably my least favorite is episode 6. Like, it's fine, but I didn't really care about the villain. And I think the end gets a little melodramatic for the show.
Oh, okay.
Like with the whole like Alfred's, you have to kill me before it makes me kill you. That's your only option.
Well, I mean, to be fair, as far as he knows, he's possessed by a spirit. He doesn't know how to get rid of it.
You can't punch him.
So yeah, that is his only option. I hear what you're saying for it being kind of melodramatic, but
yeah, it's fine. But it's probably the one I'd skip or like not go back to if I didn't have to.
Dan, I really appreciated that episode because of the social class stuff, and I thought the show really needed to do something about that. I also thought it was kind of interesting that in a show that's going to be really racially diverse and not deal with like race and racism at all, we still kind of got it in there with the social with the social class thing with a guy that's essentially a white supremacist. Like essentially, like they make it a lot more about just stature. But when we get to the whole speech about how people are not really created equal, yeah, we're kind of talking about that. And they use it as a metaphor.
Yeah, no, I really liked all that stuff too. I agree. I was surprised they went there, honestly.
Yeah, not to fight John if he didn't enjoy that episode, but that was just the thing. I was struck by it. I was kind of.
How dare you?
Change my mind. It's my favorite episode.
John, this is my worst episode. Cap, let me tell you why you're wrong.
No, I didn't mean to do that. I just went to Dan because I was thinking of Dan while I was watching that episode. Because it just seemed like something he would really appreciate, especially with all the like, you know, around the time of the Revolution stuff. Because Dan's such a history buff. Like I kept thinking of Dan while I was watching that.
No, I was kind of glad it turned out to be really like a die-in-the-wool British loyalist. I was like, this is awesome.
That was kind of fun. I just love the
British
twist.
loyalism.
I just love that the twist is that there's not really a twist. Like that was great. We're just the whole episode. You're like this guy can't possibly be the original Jim Craddock, and then it just is. Okay, that's the twist.
Who's next?
You.
Me. Okay, so I also have two favorite episodes that I can't pick between.
Yeah.
And they're the two cop heavy episodes because I really liked that stuff. Because it felt very like my kind of thing, you know, that kind of like detective thriller, you know, 40s movie kind of thing.
You like
I really like that
noirish
kind of
stuff. Yeah.
So episode 4, The Night of the Hunters, and episode 7, Moving Target, were my two favorites. They really felt like they didn't. It really felt like its own thing. With those two episodes, it felt like this is the show, right? Where it's
those are the episodes you show somebody in a vacuum.
Yeah, where it's like this is what this show is, and I like that, especially with with those two episodes, the villains are not, you know, super in the foreground, and it's like with those episodes, I feel like you don't really need villains.
Yeah.
And I really like how I really like the plot, and I would those are the ones that I would go back to just to watch.
And Onomatopoeia is the polar opposite of Harley Quinn, where he's the antithesis. He doesn't have a background, and I don't want one for him.
Oh my
gosh.
I
love that I know nothing about that.
Oh my
guy.
gosh. I was like, oh my gosh, it's onomatopoeia, and then he goes dot dot dot, and I'm like, yes.
I heard you watching that on your own and freaking out about that, and it made me laugh.
I was watching it with my brothers, and I was like, "What?" And then my least favorite episode is episode 5, Stress of Her Regard, because it came right after my favorite episode. I was like, "Wow, this is actually like," because I wasn't the biggest fan of the first 2 episodes. Right? They were like, I don't think that the pilot is a good pilot.
Oh wow!
I don't think it's like good to start the show with.
Oh, okay.
But the Catwoman episode actually like was better than the first 2 in my opinion. I was like, okay, this is getting better. And then episode 4, I was like, okay, this is actually gonna be a pretty good show, I feel like. And then it really dropped down with the Stress of Her Regard. And so,
Jayson, I'm so happy that at 14 you can review like this and not be deterred whatsoever by the rest of a 6-man panel that completely disagrees with you. Like, it's fantastic. You're over here completely making fun of this title, and you're stressed, like, everybody's, am I right, guys? Everybody else is like, I don't know, we thought that was pretty good. He's like, no, it sucks, and here's why.
Yeah, so, like I said,
So anybody that says I'm brainwashing my kid, clearly that is not true.
Like I said, I don't like Harley Quinn. I think she's annoying. I really wish...
Say regard again.
Regard. I really wish that... Guys, I'm literally in a Papa John's right now. I really wish that this was just a King Tut episode. When we saw that, oh, it's King Tut, I'm like, yes, it's King Tut. Because I actually really like King Tut. He's my favorite 60s Batman villain. It is like half and half him and Mad Hatter. But I do really like it. Or I do really like him. And I was like, okay, we're going to get, I was hoping for some 60s Batman in the show. And I'm like, yes, he's going to be our main villain. And then it's like, oh, it's just Harley Quinn and he's brainwashing her or whatever. Or she's brainwashing him or whatever. I don't know if they're actually brainwashing her. I don't know. I'm not going to go back to check.
Psychologically they're brainwashed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, he felt very much in the background, and if you're going to do like one character where like she has a whole like
he can
building.
Come back. They can do something with him later.
Yeah, hopefully. She has a whole building of like of like criminals, or not criminal, sorry, of like brainwashed people.
Yeah.
Brainwashed rich guys, and King Tut is the only one that like we know, right? Or at least like that's like that was like prominently in the.
Yeah, that's true.
And like if you're gonna do one of the why can't they all be just like side villains that like.
So I didn't mind that. It was cool to have him there. The only thing that was a little bit disappointing about doing specifically King Tut that way, and not in a lot of you guys won't know about this, won't have watched this, but we do almost the exact same thing with him in the second animated Adam West movie, Batman vs. Two-Face. It also has a sideline King Tut that's introduced right at the beginning, just like in that episode. And so I thought that was kind of odd. Austin, I also think that movie might be the reason we didn't do the plaid Two-Face suit, because they do it there.
It's possible. It is possible.
Because William Shatner's Two-Face, that's exactly the design you should have had in the show. Like, just front to back, but like, that's exactly what it should have looked like in the show.
This Two-Face should have also had his villain plot, where he just wants to make everyone in Gotham Two-Face. Like the Lizard in Amazing Spider-Man.
Dan, if you haven't seen it, it's so good. He just turns everybody into Two-Faces.
That's awesome.
It's so ridiculous. I love it.
And he's voiced by William Shatner, and Shatner's amazing in it. Like, his Harvey Dent versus Two-Face voices are like totally different, and he's got a great growl as Two-Face. I missed the Two-Face growl. This is the first time outside of Dark Knight, because I guess they took all their cues from that you don't have a Two-Face growl.
Yeah, that's true.
How'd you guys feel about the coin? That it's kind of just symbolic now.
It's just there. I honestly, I didn't need it, and if I and they didn't do anything with it. Like, there's nothing leading up to it. So he just randomly pulls out a coin, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So
it's just kind of an obligatory symbolism thing,
if
because
they're gonna do it,
Two-Face has a coin.
Yeah, because it's Two-Face, so he's got to have a coin. But if you're gonna do it, then like have him like, I don't know, just he just randomly pulled it out.
The coin thing from the Dark Knight, because that's one we talked about. It's very Dark Knight influenced. But that, especially the coin, is just straight from the Dark Knight. But then it has like no bearing on his character. He doesn't seem to believe in like fate or second chances.
Yeah, it's not about that at all.
I have questions about his character overall, but that was the big thing. Is like, he has the coin, but like, why? And like, he never tells anybody that it's both sides are the same. He never uses it as Two-Face that I can remember. It's been a minute since I watched that finale, but
yeah, he flipped it one time with the black guy that he saves in the alley, if you remember that. Okay. And then somebody else flips one for him later, completely outside of that. Like, it feels like it's just a motif in the show because it's Two-Face. There's a few things that we do like that in the show. Like,
but I wish they would have gone all in with it. Like, they only do it like 3 times, and so like if that's gonna be a thing, like that's like ongoing through the show, like have people just do it, or have him like do it, and then just
like I liked the iconography, like the Harley Quinn iconography in that episode a little bit better. Where it's all just kind of there, but not all that related to her. So, like, she's got a thing of weapons that all of her brainwashed minions can use, and there's a baseball bat in it, and there's a mallet in it, but she doesn't really do anything with those things herself. And then she's got the guy in the it's very disturbing. The guy in the diaper who she says can have pudding, so that you can get a reference to pudding in there. They did that.
Oh. My gosh. Are you kidding me?
I guess I didn't do that one necessarily.
I didn't even catch that. Is that what that was supposed to be?
Yeah, that's what that was. He goes pudding. Yep.
Yes. I don't know. I feel like this is something. This is a show where I don't know if I will like it on like other, like, another watch.
I did give it a second pass, and I enjoyed it better on a second go.
I feel like there was a lot of stuff that I didn't catch, where if I caught it, I would be like, oh, why'd they do that? Like, I didn't even catch most of the,
Austin, can I ask you a question real quick? Because we just didn't dissect Two-Face enough earlier. Okay. Is any of your issue with Two-Face the way his character is handled versus what it usually is? Because I think on paper it's really interesting, but I'm really lukewarm on the execution. Like, the idea of
another viewing.
Yeah, the idea of a Harvey Dent... Well, like I said, I watched it a second time, and it still wasn't fully landing for me. Like, the idea of a Harvey Dent that is more than morally ambiguous in the first place, who maybe at one time his heart was in the right place, but now he feels like he has to do all the corrupt stuff that the people he's going after are doing in order to get results. He becomes very ends justifying this to the means, where, like, he finds his conscience again through being Two-Face, but now it's just two personalities that are against each other. So, like, you don't even see the good that much in Harvey Dent until he's Two-Face, and now it's black and white. It's just good and just bad. I don't know, on paper, I really like that idea. I mean, it is something I've never seen with Two-Face, and it is kind of cool. I wish they'd drawn more attention to this, because even though they've got Barbara Gordon dealing with him, I didn't think about this while I was watching it. I kind of just now thought of this. But he is the Gordon and Barbara Gordon argument personified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I like everything with Harvey. Like, I like seeing, how he has to kind of maneuver through the system where you kind of have to get dirty. My issue is I like a lot of the Two-Face psychology stuff, and it goes to the Dark Knight where it drops all of that. And Dark Knight has, in my opinion, the most boring Two-Face outside of Batman Forever, where he's just a moron that mugs. So I don't know. But Dan, you really like Two-Face, like
I saw their take on Two-Face a little bit differently than you, Cap. I think I liked the characterization personally because I think what they were doing was Harvey Dent is a guy that has two conflicting sides of his personality. He is arrogant and a glory hound, but also wants to see the city cleaned up, and his heart is in the right place. And given push comes to shove, in the conversation he has with Thorne in the limousine, he sides with his arrogant and glory hound side of his personality. He wants to be mayor more than he wants to see the city cleaned up. He sides with his own self-interest more than his desire for justice, and that's what destroys him. And I really liked that kind of dynamic with the character. And I do wish maybe we had a little bit more time with him talking about, like, you know, where his desire to see justice done comes from. But I thought it worked well enough, personally.
You're right. And that's an aspect of it I didn't latch on to enough, because I think that comes a little bit too late. Like, I think early on it feels like he's played as kind of straight up corrupt. And then you don't realize that it's a lot more nuanced than that, and that he's actually those two sides integrated, and then they get pulled out, which is the thing I've never seen with Two-Face before.
Yes.
Usually it's like a dark side that he buries, and then that dark side comes out. And here he's not burying anything. You see all of it at face value.
Exactly. So I liked that aspect of it. I do wish that Two-Face lived so we could explore the character a bit more and see those.
It's very odd to kill such a big villain.
I mean, I think it worked for the story they were telling, and it was definitely unexpected. So it shocked me in a good way. But you know, it is a choice I could see people not liking, or for sure.
No, I agree. I do think it works for what they're doing. It's just, as comic book people, we're like, but you got to do like 8,000 stories with him. He's got to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's also a part of me that, I said this before the show came out, that wanted everything to be quintessential and going back to brass tacks, because we haven't had that in so long with it. So I didn't really want reinventions for villains. I wanted to go back to what they were at the beginning. And I was won over on it with almost everybody. And even with Harvey Dent, I thought it was all right. I was just a little bit lukewarm on it.
That's fair.
Also, I just want to say with the reinvention thing, I do feel like it's only Harley and Harvey Dent that are really reinvented. I see a lot of people say it with Penguin, but it's just that she's a woman. Like, that's the only real difference. Like, it's a more traditional Penguin than
it is. But the reason people are complaining about that is because it feels like a change for the sake of change. And again, people just wanted quintessential what these characters looked like in the 40s.
No, and I can agree with that. Like, I don't really see a reason why she has to be a woman, but at the same time, it doesn't take anything away from me. Like, it is just the Penguin.
Can I tell you my problem with Penguin, though?
Go for it.
She is, well, I mean, not the character. I actually thought she was great. My complaint is everything that's cool about her is undercut by how easily she's taken out.
She does nothing.
I didn't want her to go that quick. Like, I was hoping she'd be in the background and be one of the recurring mobsters that's kind of fighting in the background with a possible impending gang war or something.
I agree.
Like, that was really sad that she was taken out as quick as she was, and I'm sure we'll see her again later. But
I
didn't really have the, but it also helps that she also wins. Like, she gets what she's after, so she leaves a bigger impact on me, I guess.
I guess that's true. And what happens at the end of the episode for Batman is really important. Like, the season is really subtly bookended with mistakes Batman makes, or at least choices he makes that massively impacts the status quo of crime in the city. So you have the discussion that he has with Alfred in the Batcave at the end of that, where it's like, well, yeah, the Penguin is gone, but now there's this power vacuum, and then that allows Thorne to get more of a stronghold, right? And then he forcing Harvey Dent to go out to dinner pushes him further into the villainous direction, so that's also his fault. So they bookend with that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that was probably my favorite thing about the Two-Face whole Two-Face take, is like, it's kind of like Bruce's fault. Like, he's pushing Harvey and trying to like use him to figure out who disfigured him, and it's what ultimately causes him to snap.
And he's using the same methodology that Harvey Dent was using.
Yeah, and that's the episode that I think also kind of makes me wonder about their friendship, because he seems to like be defending Harvey's tactics in that episode. because he's like Harvey, may have went over the edge a couple of times, but like he still cared about justice.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and he tells Alfred that's all I'm doing is what he was doing,
Yeah.
and Alfred's like, but you're using him, and then that intentionally, obviously, that speaks to their relationship because Alfred feels like that's what Batman's doing to him. That's a question I have for you guys. What do you think the secret is that that Gentleman Ghost is talking about when he possesses Alfred? Because at first I thought it was just the secret of Batman, but then the way he's talking about it's like something that he's hiding from Batman.
From Batman.
So like, is it just that he doesn't like being used? Like, is that the secret?
The secret is that Alfred is Bruce's father.
Oh my god.
I wonder. I mean,
It's like
I
he's got an
assume
origin.
it would have something to do with his parents. But
Yeah.
what that would be, I have no idea.
Oh, you think that's maybe a thread that they're starting that'll come back later?
Yeah, I was
I
going to
just
say.
really
I
hope it's not the
have a feeling
Telltale thing.
Not yet.
That's what I was about
I
to
hope
say.
so. I hope so too.
That's what I have a feeling they're going to do something like
I
that.
think that the Batman danced around and then said, "Nope, psych, it's not that."
Yeah, it does better than Telltale.
Well, see, it's like that's touching into kind of a major issue I have with this show, which is that like it wants to be sort of this episodic, has a status quo thing, but then also have these kind of overarching narratives, and then they just kind of fizzle out, and then by the end it just sort of resets back to a status quo, and I feel like nothing was really accomplished. So like there's a point where like the mayor takes Gordon off of the task force to hunt Batman, and then hands it to Flass and Bullock, and then that doesn't really go anywhere. And then we have like this whole thing with Alfred, and that doesn't really go anywhere. And then by the end of it, like they have like some real dirt that they could have on Flass, where it's like he shot Harvey Dent. There's his gun with his bullets, and then Batman does the dumbest thing I've ever seen in like a Batman show. Well, maybe not, but he like shoots all of the other rounds out of that gun and then throws the pistol in the ocean or in the river. It's like, that was evidence that you could have put Floss away with. So what? And then it's like, and then it all just kind of goes back to Rupert Thorne has a grasp on the crime in Gotham. Batman and the cops need to try to fight against it, even though they're in a corrupt system. The end. And like, well, come on. I feel like we had all of this stuff here to really move forward with the story, or like bring it to a close, and then we just went out of our way to just undo any progress that was made. We just have Harvey Dent taken out now, and that was really like frustrating to me, because I feel like that kind of aspect of the show is like on an episode basis is also kind of what I have on the entire series. Like I have a hard time with the earlier episodes. I think the second episode is maybe at least my most disappointed episode. But like kind of after that, I started to really kind of got won over by the show. And then at the end, it kind of fumbled the bag. And I feel like every single episode, I would start off going, I don't know about this. And then it would kind of win me over. And I'd be like, oh, it's pretty good. And then at the end, I was a little underwhelmed. Be like, oh, okay, that wasn't resolved and as good as it could have been. But overall, the episode's fine. And I feel that way kind of about the whole series as a whole. So,
how did you feel about Two-Face not really being the villain at the end, though? And just kind of being like...
See, the reinvention stuff, I think, kind of goes into Barbara. It goes into Harley Quinn. Kind of goes into aspects of the police force where like Bullock is just completely crooked. I kind of enjoyed a lot of these reinventions, but then when it comes to Two-Face, that does sort of feel like Cappy you're talking about, where you're like, I feel like they're just trying to do stuff to be different because Bruce Timm has done all the stuff before. The stuff with Two-Face, even if it is reinvented, it still veers way too close to their traditional Two-Face origin from the animated series. And that's like one of like the iconic Batman cartoon episodes, right? And so it does that. All that stuff felt very obligatory to me. And so when he does finally become Two-Face, it's like, okay, well, his right side got scarred instead of his left side, but his right side is still the good side. It's all scarred and like withered away, but like that's the part that has like this regret, and it's not his arrogance, it's not his ego. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something. But they are more interested in Harvey Dent as a part of that kind of ensemble rather than him being a sort of a villain, which I get because like I can understand why Bruce Timm et al. Would kind of be more interested in that than just doing straight up Two-Face as the bad guy, because they've already done that before. So I guess I can understand why it was. I just feel like the overall story didn't really bring it home in a satisfying way.
When considering they were avoiding villains that were huge in that show that they already had kind of iconic versions of, it was a little bit surprising that they decided to do Harvey Dent in the first place. It's really the only one like that.
And Clayface.
That's true. That's
Harvey
the other one.
Dent.
And interesting because both of the right, but yeah, but like she never gets her own, like she's such a henchman character. But you're right, that does count. But it's also interesting that Two-Face and Clayface both have face in their name. No, that Two-Face and Clayface both have introductory 2-part origin episodes in animated series, and I think in the first season, and then they're the two the two big villains they decided to use here. Oh, Man-Bat's something they gotta do.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Gimme.
Although, I mean, how do you reinvent that? Different enough from what they did and still make it great. Like that's kind of a hard thing for this team to
he'll
do.
He'll be a bat that turns into a man.
Yes.
Connor, I agree and disagree with some of your issues with the ending, like and with just dropped threads. Like I'm with you that it doesn't go far enough, but the idea that the status quo at the end is too similar to what it is at the beginning, I didn't have that, just because Batman now has allies and Thorne is a lot more in control. It kind of just depends on what they do moving forward with it. You know what I mean? Like you got to change the status quo up enough. My issue, again, like I said earlier, is more just it feels like a mid-season, ender more than.
Well, and that's what's interesting.
Like I think it gets far enough for a mid-season, but
yeah, no, and the Harley Quinn episode is like 5, right? So that is like
that's the mid-season. Yeah.
And that's what's kind of frustrating about just streaming television in general to me, is we have to wait 5 years to get like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And like this stuff doesn't even look nearly as good as it did in the 90s. So I'm like, that's frustrating to me. But like, it's fine. I can live with it. But I guess like to throw my hat in the ring, I think the best episode is maybe the Catwoman episode. I think Christina Ricci's a great Catwoman. She's so good. And I kind of liked how that episode dealt with class and like maybe like gender politics in like the 40s in a kind of a cool way that did sort of feel very retro. And then doing classic Golden Age Catwoman stuff is really fun to me. But then I actually think my least favorite episode, I guess I'll go my most disappointing episode, was actually the Clayface episode. Because if you guys don't know this, I know I've texted some of you guys about this, but like I actually have like a pitch for a 6-episode season of like television that is like a historical fiction Batman take, and I do have like a Clayface episode, and I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna do it, and they didn't, and that was fine. They did it more Hollywood, and that's cool, and I'm like, let's go, they're doing Clayface, and I love the design, I love the take on the character, but I did kind of feel like the way that was handled was, and again, I feel like it's a problem with the animation. Like at the end, it gets very melodramatic, which is great. You do melodrama if you're doing like 1930s Hollywood, yes, but like the show's not stylized enough for that, and like so as a result, I felt like it did just kind of feel like it was people just kind of explaining stuff, and it just kind of like didn't land for me very well. But I'm glad we got a Basil Carlo Clayface, and it's like Golden Age Clayface. That's cool. I like that we got it.
What's exactly what I wanted, where it's Golden Age Clayface but mixed with the shapeshifter thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool they went that big with it. And I also
and then like Pit and the Pendulum for the big death trap at the end. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I also really like their take with him, where he's got this whole speech about how he's embraced being the villain, and then somebody comes out and just says like, you're full of crap. Like that's not really what your whole thing actually is. I thought that whole thing was interesting.
That was great, and I agree. Christina Ricci is a big highlight for me in the cast.
It's so good.
Sorry,
I also want to say
Christina Ricci.
I do think when I got to the credits of the Nocturne episode, McKenna Grace was the voice of Nocturna, and I was like listening to her. I'm like, who did they get for like this role? Because like she's doing a great job. And when it said McKenna Grace, I'm like, I was really surprised because it sounded like a professionally trained voice actress. It didn't sound like just an actor who walks into a booth so that you can say you got like Chris Evans to voice somebody, right? Like it was really, I was actually impressed. And McKenna Grace is really becoming one of like the great actresses of her generation. She's always great.
Yeah, she's awesome too.
Yeah, I was curious to see who she was going to voice when we had that weird Batman Red cast list, and then we get to that episode, and I'm like, I've never heard of this character. I don't know who this is.
Well, so I was looking into it, and apparently Paul Dini wanted to do a Nocturna episode because I just assumed she was like a Vertigo character, but I guess like Paul Dini wanted to do a Nocturna episode where Batman gets turned into a vampire, and I guess something was in the water with superhero shows, cartoons wanting to do vampires in the 1990s, and the censors just really not wanting to do it. You got Morbius with his plasma fixation in Spider-Man, and then you got WB just straight up saying no to Paul Dini. And when they did New Batman Adventures, he was like, so can we do this Nocturna episode where Batman gets turned into a vampire? And they were like, no. And now we have a Nocturna episode. Batman doesn't get turned into a vampire, but we finally got Nocturna, and it does. I wouldn't be surprised if like this was a really old design that Bruce Timm's been sitting on for decades, because that design looks really old.
It looks like their show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I wondered if that's why it felt the most TAS, because I knew that they wanted to use her but couldn't. So I was like, is there maybe a chance that like some of these ideas, obviously Robin Orphanage is not in that original show.
No, but the way they animate children, I mean, like those character models, and just the way they wrote them, like that's just like every kid that was ever in that show.
But I could have seen like that ending where she's burning in the sun and he like covers her with his cape. That felt like it was out of like the Baby Doll episode or something.
Yes,
like, I could have
it does.
seen how they ended that episode back then.
Oh, speaking of kids, I meant to say this earlier. One of my favorite, just like choices for like iconic first time kinds of thing. It's like how do you do Bruce, like Batman meeting Gordon for the first time? Their take on it, where they become allies because Batman saves children from a burning building, is perfect.
Yes,
it's so good.
It's great.
That's why I love that episode. My favorite episode. That'll be my favorite episode. It's really good.
It's so good.
It's the world's least urgent tenement fire, but it's
another thing Connor mentioned. Can I say this real quick? Another thing Connor mentioned that I wanted to complain about, because I'm with him on it. Connor, the bit, it's always provocative to see Batman pick up a gun. And I was kind of excited about it to see what they were going to do with it and how they were going to justify he's picking up a gun. That was the most kind of like typical TV thing to me in the entire show. Was he picks up a gun, and then we cut to something else, and then we hear the bullets fire, and then we cut back to Batman, and then it's got smoke coming off of it, and oh my god, well, you know what's going to happen. You're going to cut back to the guy, and it's going to be, who did he fire at? Was it Zito?
Flash.
Was it? No, it was Flash. That's what it was. It was Flash. We go back to Flash, and it's got the 5 bullets around his head. And the first thing I thought was, okay, yeah, I didn't kill him, but that guy is never going to hear again. That was the first thing I thought, was he just destroyed that man's hearing. And the second thing I thought was, okay, so what about, like, I get what you're saying with, like, not having the evidence and all of that. Real quick about all of that. There's a throwaway line that kind of explains all of that right before that, where Flash is like, it was a righteous kill. Like, he's gonna win on that argument all day long, especially with a mirror that loves him. Like, Batman's the evidence isn't gonna matter. Like because Flash can just say, yes, I killed that guy. It was a righteous kill. He was gonna fire at me, or he was gonna kill somebody else, or whatever. Like, nah, he was gonna win that. I didn't have any of that.
Okay, he's handcuffed to a lawyer, and you have the police commissioner looking at. I don't know. I feel like there's enough of an argument, but you're right.
Maybe so. But my whole thing about it was just, what are we saying with that? Like what? Like,
well, yeah, we haven't established this Batman's relationship with guns.
Well, it's not even just that. Like that's clear enough to me. Where it's like, especially if you know anything about Batman at all, where he's just like, it's a gun, and then he throws it away or whatever. But like, but what is he doing? Why is he like? Was he tempted to kill Flash? Because that's not what I saw. It didn't seem like he had any temptation at all. It seemed like the whole time his plan was just to freak this guy out and make him think he was gonna die, and then throw the gun. It's just like
Also,
that whole scene did not work for me.
Also,
at
how
all.
much target practice has Batman had with guns?
Is it weird that I get that it's point blank, but is it weird that he's able to fire 5 shots around a guy's head, not accidentally nick him at all, but he can't throw a batarang and not nick a guy's ear at the end? Huh? Or maybe he nicked his ear
timely, right?
on purpose?
He did that on purpose. He did that on purpose.
Well, I mean, maybe.
I mean, he does fire other types of guns.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah.
I don't know what we were doing with that except just trying to freak out an audience. Like
we have a question from Robert Wild.
Okay, cool.
Cap, how happy were you to see Firebug make his triumphant return in other media after last being seen as a boss fight in Batman the Movie the video game?
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I didn't know who that was. I also thought it was going to be Firefly.
Well, they kind of combined them into one character.
Yeah.
His whole story I thought was really tragic, where
it was great.
The cops are using him. Also, I just want to say, before I get to this, the Year One movie sucks, and I'm glad I got to see the whole decoy thing with the cops done in something better. But the whole thing where they take Firefly...
Aren't you excited to do that rewind commentary, Austin?
No. The whole thing where they're using Firefly like to bring Batman out, and then they just execute him so that he can't come back at them is really great. It's very tragic.
Yeah, and I thought he was just real, like classic psychotic Arkham Batman villain, where he's got that one fixation and he sees the world totally differently, and like fire brings him joy, and so like there's not even a malice to it. He it's like Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory for him. Like I loved the fire vision.
Yeah. We got another super chat.
Okay.
If you want to do that real quick.
Yeah.
And then do we have a couple other people that have to do their
Yes, and then we'll end up off that, or end up right off of that.
Cool.
I can't even talk
anymore.
We
have
should
a
probably
$2 super chat from Checkers the Inventor.
Thanks, Checkers.
Batman is kind of a weak fighter here. Is that intentional?
I think personally, yes. I think it's to the point Austin made earlier when we were comparing this to the Matt Reeves movie and how some of us at least thought that it was somewhat inspired by that movie, like how the animated series was by '89. The Robert Pattinson Batman like loses fights in that movie because he's like young and fresh, and I think it works because it makes him, more of an underdog. It makes the fights in the movie have feel tense, like anything could happen. So I think that's an intentional choice on their part for sure.
Yeah, it's not even something I really thought of as being like a choice. I don't know. One of the things I think about with TAS with Batman fighting is there's that one goofy bit in the Clayface episode where he's beating up a regular thug and then stands up and the guy just like trips him in the most like awkward looking thing ever. Like TAS Batman gets his ass kicked quite a bit too. So I just kind of felt like more of that. But I agree with what you're saying too, Dan.
No, I had that thought too. I thought it was just the way they do Batman. Because I remember back when The Batman came out, not the movie, but the animated series, a lot of people that loved that show when I didn't understand it, and I've turned around on that show, but at that time I didn't like it at all. And I would hear people go, but Batman like fights better and he's so much more fluid, and I'm like, that's never what I came to Batman for. I don't really care about that. I like that this Batman is a really good detective, but he maybe didn't train with anybody physically.
We trained with Alfred, and Alfred was eating donuts while training him.
I like that. His with fighting, it's very balanced. Like, this isn't like Arkham Batman, where he can drop in a room of like 50 people and leave them all crippled for the rest of their life. It's just like he's a detective and he's got just enough fighting skills to get him by.
Yeah, I mean, what I said is
like
wrong. He's good at.
he's
He's
an
decent enough at
aggressive
swordplay, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know why he knows how to do that.
I just
Well,
swing-
next season they'll
swing
show
around.
him and Alfred fencing for like 12 hours a day. and Alfred would that's why Alfred is overweight, because he stresses after the 12 hours.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say he's gonna be like the first episode of the second season. He's like real buff now. He's like super skinny and buff.
That's what they should do. Like, just off screen. I've been training with you for 12 hours a day, Master Bruce.
Or Bruce Wayne invents Ozempic, and then he's like, "Here you go, Alfred. I made this for you."
The big
mean,
twist is
like-
Alfred is the first Robin.
Exactly.
Who hasn't thrown out best and worst episode yet?
I think just you, Dan, and I.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
All right. So my favorite episode was probably the Clayface episode.
Eat that, Connor.
No, that's fair.
Eat it.
Connor, you're wrong.
I love the Universal monster movies, and I loved that their design for Carlo looked like Boris Karloff. I liked that his kind of like central struggle was something that a lot of those actors like Bela Lugosi faced in terms of typecasting, being unsatisfied with their careers. And I really liked that he was kind of like the Phantom of the Opera, but for a Hollywood movie studio. I thought that was a really cool idea. Like adapting one of the plots from one of the classic Universal monster movies into a Batman episode was really cool for me to see. And then there was like a lot of really cool references to that episode, like all the posters with Carlo's name on them. They were like a mummy movie or monster Frankenstein-y looking kind of poster. So it was like references to Boris Karloff's career specifically. So I was just kind of like looking at all the references and enjoying that stuff and enjoying the story as well. I think my least favorite episode, I mean, I liked all the episodes. There wasn't an episode where I like rolled my eyes and like didn't enjoy it. So it was difficult for me. I was kind of reading over the list while you guys were talking about yours a little bit, trying to figure out which one I like didn't like, because I really did enjoy all of them. But I think my least favorite is probably the Catwoman episode, just because it was the least gritty and dark in tone of all of them. Like it was a little bit more goofy and fun. Not that I hate fun or anything. All of the episodes have that in them to some
Dan
degree.
hates fun.
Dan hates the kitty car. He was like, "This never should have been adapted."
I thought it was the least tonally consistent with the rest of the show and what I liked about it. So that's was probably why it was my least favorite. Yeah. But I did enjoy the episode overall. I thought it was good.
That's so funny, Dan, because like you're right, but it was the episode that I was most finding myself comparing the Burton stuff to, which is a lot of why I said that. And I think, I don't know, maybe I wanted more of the show to be that tone, but then I liked the noirish stuff too. I'm saying all that to say that was the episode I was going to say is my favorite, so I'm going to say suck it again, but to Dan this time.
That's fair.
I think that was my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of contenders. Like I said, gun to my head, that's probably what I say. But like Night of the Hunters is also really great. The one right after that, and I think that's the best plotted episode. And then I think my least favorite probably is 9 is Killer Inside Me when we finally get the full on Two-Face, and like it's still, again, none of these are bad.
Yeah,
but that was the thing I was most lukewarm on. So I guess I have to say that. Austin, what are yours, man?
Well, everybody took all mine. So worst one, yeah, definitely for me is episode 9. But like you, there's not a bad episode. I think they're all really good. That's almost by default, just because I don't love their Two-Face. My best one, I feel like I could make an argument for 2, 4, 7, and 8. So the Onomatopoeia episode, the Nocturne episode, Clayface, and the Firefly one. And every reason that I could give for all of them has been said at this point by all you guys.
Yeah,
so like,
sorry.
I agree. No, I'm not. That's not me being like, oh, I don't get to say anything. That's just no. Like, you guys summed it up perfectly. Like,
Like they're all my favorite.
Yeah, no, it's hard to say. I think if you had to nail me down to just one, it's probably the Nocturnal one. Because like Dan had with the Universal Monster stuff, I really like how we're going into like a Dr. Caligari visually in places with the circus. And it's got Killer Croc, so...
Yeah, no, I mean, Dan, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said, like, it's a very consistent show. And I think, you know, even if I have reservations about it overall, that's something I did appreciate is how consistent the show is. And I should say my actual worst one is the 9th episode as well. So I was just throwing out the Clayface episode because I know a lot of people really like that. And I would just say that was one I was most disappointed by. I had higher expectations going into that one than others. So.
Connor, you changed your tune really fast there, buddy.
Connor got so owned when Dan literally flipped his. Like, the best one is Clayface.
Connor was like, episode 2 is my least favorite, and everybody's like, I love episode 2.
I didn't even think of that I chose the exact opposite of Connor. I'm sorry. I didn't do that on purpose.
It's fine. No.
Dan's gonna make a new feeling it sign. On one side it's gonna say "suck it, Connor." On the other side it's gonna say "suck it, Connor."
And if I'm just gonna keep kissing up to Dan, I should say I've learned one thing tonight, and that's that I love orphanage Robin jokes, and Dan's is still the best. It's a Robin producing factory. That's still the goal.
Yeah. Austin and I talked about that when I was watching it when I was traveling out here, and it was so funny. Like I didn't even like think of that when I was watching, and then as we talked, we were like, oh, this is a Robin producing orphanage. That's like what Leslie Tompkins does.
It's great. There's probably more Robins there. We don't even know about them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'll be when the orphanage comes back in season 2.
You're gonna get like a 9-year-old Duke Thomas.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna hit every Robin eventually in this orphanage.
And he's gonna be like, I'm doing something different. Everybody's like, what the hell does that mean?
I hope we see the Signal with that bright yellow costume in this art style.
Oh my god. Speaking of that, just that word. I think it's weird that we're avoiding the bat symbol or signal. And if we do it, it's going to feel like a step backwards. Like, well, you have Batman's phone number. Why the hell would you need to shine a light in the sky?
It's weirder because we get a reference to it in that very same scene that you're mentioning.
Yeah, so it's like, was that foreshadowing, or was that just a nod to a thing that we're not going to do, like probably the Robins?
What's like I said when we reviewed Monster Man Cap, they're just going to keep calling Batman to the point where he's going to just disconnect his phone and be like, look, here's a light that you can shine in the sky. You can call me with that.
I'm really tired of you calling me. Well, especially in that book, because Gordon has this really curious obsession with calling Batman.
Yeah, to the point where
I just constantly want to call Batman. I can't wait to call Batman.
He gets chewed out by his boss, and his first reaction is to call Batman. It's awesome.
I would be a little disappointed if they don't end up doing like a bat symbol or bat signal of some kind.
It's so weird to do it.
I feel like it's just too foundational.
Well, and not only that, but you're in a period where you can get away with it.
It'll probably be something less about calling Batman and more like putting the fear in people, right? Where it's like,
yeah,
maybe.
Well, and also it wouldn't, to be fair, it wouldn't have made sense to have the signal yet when there's a task force going after Batman.
Yeah.
Like Gordon could never get away with that.
I wouldn't have brought attention to it yet.
No, I wouldn't have done that either.
No, we're setting it up.
I hate that line. It's so weird.
Robert had a good point where he says the show is definitely doing something right when almost everyone on the panel has a different favorite and least favorite episode.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry, Dan, were you going to say something?
I was just going to agree with your point regarding the status quo at this point with the bat signal. I feel like because Gordon is like, I mean, he's the commissioner, but he's not really in charge of the police department. It's still kind of like out of his control, and he's like fighting against a system that's doing everything to resist him. Once he's able to conquer that, I feel like that will be forthcoming. At least I hope that's what I'm surmising.
He's just gonna shine it from the top of his own apartment building.
On top of his suburban home outside the city, like the one we saw that he went to.
Jayson, did we do yours? Because we all know that your
Yes.
5th episode was the worst. But
we
did
did say.
Did
Yeah.
we do that? Okay. Did anybody else not get to go?
No, that was everyone.
Okay, Jason, we've got one more super chat.
Yes. It is from Robbie this guy. It's a $5 super chat.
Thanks, man.
I love how unhinged Batman is, especially with the Batmobile.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I laughed so hard the first time he hits it was the first or second episode. He hits 3 guys with his Batmobile.
Yeah.
That was another
First
thing where I was
episode,
thinking
yeah.
I was thinking Burton. I was like, oh, this Batman just runs people over with his Batmobile.
He also says, I'm really loving DC's animation output lately between this Superman and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can argue about Harley Quinn a little bit. I like that better than I probably should. That's a guilty pleasure from me.
Don't
But,
forget Kite Man.
I'm not watching that, by the way. I don't. That's where I draw the line. Is the stupid Kite Man spinoff?
Yeah, that's what we're doing after Smallville.
God damn! I knew it. I knew you were gonna say
24 hours of Kite Man.
that. I hope they haven't made enough to have 24 hours of Kite Man.
I don't even think Tom King would want to watch 24 hours of Kite Man.
Connor, was there any
Hey,
part
develop
of
the
you
press.
that when Tom King did his Kite Man and could not stop having him say hell yeah, eventually there would be a cartoon show called Kite Man Hell Yeah?
No, that did not cross my mind whatsoever.
Well, it happens, sir. See, you just can't predict superhero screen future. It's insane. We live in the wrong future. Pretty
So
cool.
when are we
I
going to
really
get
wanna
the
know-
Bat and the Cat show?
The Bat and Cat.
I really want to know David Zaslav's thought process, like axing this show but greenlighting Kite Man.
I know. I'm assuming it was in the works before he came on, but he could have axed it for taxes. I don't,
Yeah, exactly.
like he did it.
Well, I think
And
Yeah,
they
we
just
know.
did one of the spin-off of like an already popular show.
Well, Dan, I think what you're not considering is that he's all about quality, and so that's why.
Right.
he did that.
See, my thought is he's like, okay, the Kite Man show, whatever, like it'll make enough money for like whatever we spent on it. This show has to make up $1 billion we gave to JJ, so we gotta step it up. We gotta get more money out of it.
There is,
Shore that up.
I think there's a lot behind the scenes we don't know about all of those choices of the stuff that he axes and the stuff that he allows, because it seems like I read this on stream the other day. There's this wonderful article that I can't remember what outlet that put it out, but we read this on Thursday on the Captain Logan show about they're ending the Boomerang Network, and the subheading of that article said, so clearly David Zaslav hates Scooby-Doo. Because he just keeps axing Scooby-Doo stuff, and then Boomerang had all the Scooby-Doo shows, and apparently some of those are supposed to go over to HBO Max, but the guy's like, and he admits that, but he's like, the point still stands. This guy hates Scooby-Doo. I thought that was
And
so...
Looney Tunes.
And Looney Tunes. Yeah, except he's letting a Looney Tunes thing go to the theater now. Even though he
But it had to be
acts...
bought by Ketchup.
What now?
It said it had to be distributed by Ketchup.
Oh, that's right. But still, it's so arbitrary that I got rid of the Wile E. Coyote movie. None of this makes any sense. Dan, it makes no sense.
especially
It keeps me up at night.
given that the Wile E. Coyote movie was a James Gunn thing, who
I
he
know.
like gave DC studio to. Like,
I
he had
know.
faith in him.
How did
Like,
Gunn sit
That's
there
the
and
thing
take that?
That blows my mind.
You'd think
I'm
if
still.
anybody could have stopped that, it'd be the guy that's heading up this, not just a branch of their studio, but the thing they think will save them.
Yeah.
I still don't even understand how Batgirl was legally allowed to get just like thrown away, because it's like actors, when they appear in stuff, like they I think they have protections where it's like I'm agreeing to be in this as opposed to being in something else, because so like it should get released, you know? Like I don't know, if you have like J.K. Simmons and like Michael Keaton and like Brendan Fraser and stuff, it's like I don't know. I'm surprised that actually happened, but what do I know? I guess not much, because that was still surprising.
No,
to
it
me.
makes no sense.
It
and I
really doesn't. It's just
and
baffling.
I think maybe there were even discussions about like whether what he's been doing with all that is illegal, and like the government was looking into it. I think.
I remember
Like a
hearing
second,
something
yeah.
about that.
Michael
I don't know. I think
reaction to that's really funny though. I don't know if you guys saw that.
What was that? I forget.
Somebody asked him, they were like, Michael Keaton, like, how do you feel that they got like completely canceled this? And he was just like, I mean, they probably made the right decision. I don't know.
I thought he just said like, well, you know, we shot it. I liked it. It was fine. We had a good time making it. But like, it was something like I got paid, so it's fine. Like,
yeah, it was something like that, but like mixed with like I'm sure they know what they're doing.
I love old actors that don't care anymore, that are legends like Michael Keaton and Harrison Ford. They're the best.
okay, but I dare you guys to disagree with this. If Flash had gotten Zaslaved, he would have said the exact same thing.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He wouldn't have
that's-
said it was one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. That's what he would have said.
I want to put him and Stephen King in a room. Just seeing he's like, Michael Keaton, I think The Flash is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. And Keaton's response would have been, I don't watch those. I don't know. Maybe it is. In the same breath, if they'd axed it, if they'd canceled it, he would have been, you've probably made the right decision. It might have been
My
one of the best
favorite
superhero movies ever made.
old
I don't
man
know. I
Keaton
don't watch them.
thing. My favorite old man Keaton thing was on the press tour of Homecoming, when someone was like, "Oh, like, did you really like the Vulture before you got this role? Like, are you a big fan of that character?" And he was like, "Look, I was Batman. I barely know who the Joker is. Do you know? Do you think I know who the Vulture is?"
Yeah, that was great.
Hey, speaking of Stephen King, Cap, have you ever read the book Desperation?
No.
Okay, I picked it up today. I was just curious.
Oh, okay. No, I've not. I watched Keaton's new movie, which just came to Max. I meant to see it in the theater and I missed it. Knox Goes Away.
Yeah, how's that?
Which a mild recommendation from me. I don't know if I'm going to review it. I need to watch it again if I'm going to review it. I didn't have a great deal to say about it. He's great in it. I thought the third act was a little weak, but the premise is super cool. It's Keaton playing a hitman with dementia. And
Safe House.
So it's like
it reminded me of Safe House a lot, yeah. But it's this like rare kind of dementia that once it hits you, you go really, really fast. And simultaneously, he has a son that has like killed someone, and it's like sort of understandable. I mean, not really. Like, you shouldn't murder people, but like, you know, you're kind of half on his side about it. And so while he's losing his mind, he's got to help his son through having murdered someone and try to get off.
That feels like a Keaton thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. He's great. He's great in it. And Pacino's in it, and he's great in it.
Oh, cool. I remember that. I think that premiered at Venice or Toronto of last year, and there was like 3 Hitman movies that all came out in like the span of 5 days. It was like David Fincher made a Hitman movie, and Richard Linklater made a Hitman movie, and then Michael Keaton had a Hitman movie, and it was like, what's going on?
And Keaton directed it, for people that don't know.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more super chat.
You know what though? You know what though, Connor? You know what that movie's not gonna be?
What's that?
A franchise.
Franchise.
Anyway, go ahead, Jason. We're gonna try to. I said we were gonna finish up an hour ago, but more super chats and things.
Gosh.
Yeah, I gotta go in a few minutes.
We understand, Dan. We all also need to go in a few minutes. The show is too long. I'm sorry. It's a 6-man panel.
We have $5.
Dan's never coming back. Go ahead.
$5 super chat from Checkers the Inventor.
He's not even disagreeing with that. Look at that.
No, I was just letting Jason talk.
Dan's like, come on. Go for it, Jason.
Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
Unlikely, but I could imagine a spiritual successor to Fleischer's Superman in this universe. He also says, I mostly agree with Connor, who I usually don't like.
That's a running gag from forever ago. Connor, do you remember that?
Of course.
I'm just making sure that you don't think Checkers actually doesn't like you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. These people don't know me well enough to hurt my feelings. That's why they don't like me.
Connor's like, I don't care what these peons think. I don't know them well enough.
despite the My Adventures with Superman show being really good, I would love a follow-up to this where they do the same thing with Superman, but I don't want them connected, or I don't need them connected. I think it'd be nice if they didn't feel the need to do a full-on DC universe with this whole thing. Just do that also, but make it disconnected.
Yeah, this is actually a conversation that we had in the Discord. When I was watching it, I was like imagining what a 1940s golden age Superman show with a similar kind of aesthetic approach, but like retro futurism, Metropolis movie looking Metropolis, and like all of that kind of stuff would be for Superman. I mean, that would be awesome. I would love to see that.
And yeah, I mean, this is called Caped Crusader, and like, so there's like, and there is an element of like social crusading going on that goes right into like the very early Superman adventures. I would be totally down for that.
If they went to to comic creators like they did with this, the first person I would hope that they would talk to would be Morrison.
Yep, I agree.
Yes,
because he brought that back with 52, and it was one of the only good things in New 52. So,
yes.
I loved the early Action Comics issues. The first like arc with it, or I think it's 12 issues. I don't know if it's technically 1 or 2 arcs, but that run, but before he gets the Jim Lee costume when he's in the jeans and t-shirt, that stuff is incredible.
It's
the stuff
so
after
good.
that is still pretty good that Morrison does, but I like that 12 issues he did with that stuff the most.
Same.
Yeah, and he did really fun stuff with like the Bottle City of Candor and with Mixelplick and.
Yeah, he did.
Is that another thing we're gonna have to talk about, Cap?
Yes, John, because you're my Superman guy now for some reason.
If you want me
Do a
to tap in,
though,
for
where we should do a reinvention where it's a city of bottles, though, instead of a bottled city.
Shut up,
Like
Austin.
really flipped it on its head.
You really
Robert
spun the
does say
bottle on that one.
In the chat, the way Bruce Timm talked about it, he thinks we'll see Superman in like season 3 or so instead of just like the whole show.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that could be cool. I don't need that, but
We're getting the sync hit. We're gonna make it work.
I'm fine with it. I like the Superman show and this aesthetic, but for Metropolis and all that would be cool. But I don't need it because I have like My Adventures Superman, which I really like. I would watch it if they made that.
and we'd have to talk
I'm
about
fine
it.
with them just doing. Yeah, I would be fine with them just doing a like World's Finest crossover or something.
In fact, I want a new Superman thing greenlit every week just so I can force John to talk about it. Guys, we got to wrap things up. We're at 3 hours. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks to the panel. Thank you guys for sitting here for 3 hours with us. Sorry we took so long, but there was a lot to talk about.
Thanks for having us. This was a great time.
Whole season, and I appreciate that. Dan, I know we're never going to see you again, but I do.
I'll be back.
I do really appreciate it. Yeah, Dan is 2 hours behind me now. Our whole tenure working together, Dan's been an hour ahead, and especially in the last few years, that has made it impossible for us to work together. I always have to start at 9 or 10 o'clock. So you guys will actually probably see Dan a little bit more often on the channel now. Which
Yeah, it's coming back for more Batman.
exciting. We're gonna.
Oh my god, I'm in the same time zone as one of the co-hosts. This is unheard of. This is
That
crazy.
it is. That is pretty unusual. But yeah, we're gonna start trying to get Dan back for more vaults, and Austin and I have been doing a big push to get more comic reviews out. So we'll let Dan come on and pick some stuff, and it'll be great.
I will share with you my irrational love of the New Gods eventually.
No, absolutely you should.
Hell
Well,
yeah.
that'll be a really good follow up to the Simonson Thor stuff we did a million years ago.
The Orion Thor stuff is primo. It's the best thing since Kirby, in my opinion. It's really good.
Or you mean the Orion Simonson stuff?
Yes, yeah, it's amazing.
Because I don't think Orion and Thor, that wasn't even an amalgam. Like,
Yeah, no.
no, it was Thorion. They did do that. What am I talking about?
No.
That was the amalgam.
Oh no.
You know what they didn't? You know what they didn't do in amalgam? I mean, tell me if they did do this in amalgam.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like forget it.
They probably did. Good.
Lady Deathstroke.
Lady Deathstroke.
Oh,
That's so good.
That's good.
That's
Why
lovely.
didn't they do that?
They should have done that.
Yeah.
God.
Does she
I
have
thought you
gun
were gonna
fingers?
say.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say. You know what they didn't do in amalgam is good books.
Yeah, not a lot of that. Lady Deathstroke, that's so good.
Anyway. Well, now they got to make an amalgam too now, just to do that.
Just to do that, yeah. Well, and I still want Professor Lex and the Lex-Men because it's right there.
The Lex-Men.
The Lex-Men.
It's so good. Anyway,
I'm just imagining like all of the X-Men, but like still as Lex Luthor, like they're all like Beast with Lex's face.
So I'm just all bald.
But like Professor Lex is cool because he's bald, and so he could just be Xavier. But like he's Lex Luthor. He's like morally gray Lex Luthor. Like you do all kinds of cool stuff with that. Like, imagine how scary it would be if
Professor Lex is in love with teenage Jean Grey, who's just a girl with his face.
Just a bald teenage girl.
But I'm just saying, imagine how scary it would be if Lex Luthor was born with telepathy. Like, you do all kinds of cool stuff with that.
That's true.
That's cool.
Dan's ruining my ideas again.
Sorry.
I'm so glad you're in a better time zone now. You just come here and screw up all my ideas.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, yeah, whatever. Anyway. No, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you again real soon. I am taking the week off from regular videos this week. We'll probably come in for at least a couple of streams, but I'm gearing up for a big shoot for the Superhero Rewind movie next weekend. So I've got pages and pages of dialogue to memorize for that, and I'm I almost gave away what I'm doing. I don't want to tell you guys anything, but I'm doing a set that I've got to dress, and anyway, it's gonna be a lot of work, but I'm excited about it, and Dan's gonna be in the movie.
Hey.
Yeah, and Austin is also in the movie. Anyway, we'll see you again.
I was about to say Dan's in the movie.
Dan is
what?
in the movie.
Where?
Breaking news.
I know.
Where Dan is in the
I know
movie.
where Dan is in the movie. I was just like, huh?
I can't wait for you to read what we did to you in the movie, Dan.
Yeah, I can't wait too. I'm eagerly anticipating the script.
We did. I'll be cryptic, but we did a horrible thing to you, and then we did a wonderful thing to you.
Well, it sounds like I have a good dramatic part, so I'm excited.
You do. Anyway, well, thanks again for being here, folks. I was Captain Logan. We had Jayson, we had Dan Torrey, we had Connor Nielsen, we had John Sandoval, and we had Austin, the Canadian Day Ghost.
Bye, guys.
Later, folks.
Bye.
See ya.